If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 1, The First Mysterious Notice Letter. Gotham City Police Department's rooftop. Commissioner James Gordon stood next to a giant lighted spotlight, shining the iconic bat symbol into the dark sky. Across from him, a somewhat goofy-looking teenager was staring at a card full of words. The teenager was wearing a red short-sleeved shirt, green gloves and pants, a yellow cape, and a black mask that covered half of his face. The bright red, green, and yellow colors made him look like he had just escaped from a circus and forgot to change his costume. He called himself Robin, the student, assistant, and partner of Batman. The last drop of water falls in the transparent bottle. A newborn fish leaps out of the dried-up bottle. The trapped angel weeps in sorrow. When the flipped L appears on top of the tower, silver white wings descend guided by moonlight, wiping away the angel's tears. Yours sincerely, Phantom Thief Kid. Robin finished reading the contents of the card, and his eyes showed a strange look. Commissioner, are you sure this isn't some kind of new prank? Or did the Riddler escape from Arkham? No, this isn't a prank, and the Riddler hasn't escaped either, Commissioner Gordon said with a serious gaze. About a week ago, Phantom Thief Kid sent a notice letter to the art museum. The museum staff thought it was a prank, so they didn't report it. But a few days later, they discovered that a bracelet with diamonds had been stolen, and the same card was left at the scene. Today, he sent another notice, along with the jewelry he stole last time. This time, the notice is more riddle-like and difficult to understand, and we've only figured out part of the meaning. Robin asked in surprise, so, does it mean he returned what he stole items? Why would he do that? Maybe he was angry that no one paid attention to his notice, or maybe he didn't really want the jewels but had another purpose. Who knows what he's up to? Gordon shook his head. After so many years of working on cases in Gotham, I've stopped asking why. Well, I'll keep this card with me for now, and I'll figure out its meaning, Robin said, putting away the card and preparing to leave the rooftop. You've been alone during this time. Where is Batman? Gordon asked as Robin walked away. Batman is busy with other things, he's not in Gotham right now. You know, he has a team now, and I don't mean our old duo, but a big team. The Justice League, right? I understand, Gordon replied. Don't worry, Commissioner, Gotham still has me. I can help you catch this copycat Riddler. Robin patted his chest, showing a confident smile. After speaking, he jumped off the edge of the rooftop and disappeared into the night. Meanwhile, in a single-family house in Gotham City, in a dimly lit room, a handsome young boy had a blindfold tied around his eyes. In front of him, there was a large square table with a jumble of playing cards and a timer placed on top. Taking a deep breath, the boy pressed the switch on the timer. Then, his hands quickly swooped across the table, swirling and gathering all the scattered playing cards into his palms. Then, with a quick flip of his hands and a slight squeeze, the cards began to bend under pressure. Swish, 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 swish. As the pressure on the bent cards reached its peak, the cards in his hand shot up into the air like a fountain. When the cards reached a certain height, the upward force disappeared, and they began to float back down under the influence of gravity. And then, something shocking happened. Just as the first card was about to reach the same level as his hands, all the cards that had been shot up magically left his palms. Meanwhile, the cards that were originally in his left hand smoothly fell into his right hand, followed by the rest of the cards, quickly collected in his right palm without any errors. In a synchronized motion, the stack of cards that were originally in his right hand now fell onto his left hand. The teenager intertwined his hands, merging the two stacks together and spreading them out on the table in an arched shape. Each card pressed against the edge of the one beneath it, with an almost equal distance between them. With a gentle flip of the card at the bottom, a chain reaction happened, and all the playing cards on the table automatically flipped over, like a domino effect. The first card was the ace of spades, followed by the 2 of spades, then the 3 of spades, until the king of spades. First, the spades, then the hearts, the clubs, and finally the diamonds. What was once a scattered deck of cards now perfectly displayed itself in order on the table. Finally, the boy stopped the timer. The entire process flowed smoothly, without any movements or pauses. Phew! The boy took a deep breath as he removed the black cloth that covered his eyes, revealing a pair of bright blue pupils. 27.21 seconds, 0.8 seconds faster than last month, not bad. The teenager's name was Dean Sutton. He wasn't really born in this world, he was a traveler from another world called Earth. Dean is lucky to be born in the Sutton family, which is a well-known family of magicians in Gotham. Both his parents were amazing stage magicians. Even though his parents passed away in a car accident when he had just turned 6 after arriving in this world, they left behind enough to ensure that Dean would never have to worry about starving. However, despite this, Dean still felt a great sense of problem in his heart. Even though he didn't pay much attention to DC Comics in his previous life, he had heard about many large-scale events with wide-ranging disasters. Events like the Star City explosion, the destruction of Bloodhaven, the 7 million lost souls in Coast City, the cosmic calamity of Blackest Night, and so on. Even without mentioning those terrifying major events, let's focus on Dean's life in Gotham. He has to set up traps at his doorstep and windows every night just to feel safe enough to sleep. The future would only grow more dangerous. Luckily, as a traveler, Dean had his own golden finger, an interface called the Miracle Thief system that resembled a game UI. Name: Dean Sutton. Age: 16. Skills: proficiency in magic, proficiency in driving, proficiency in lock-picking, proficiency in shooting, proficiency in hand-to-hand combat, quick disguise, voice changes without props. Items: card gun, grapple gun, triangular glider, bulletproof cloak. This was Dean's personal panel in the system. Aside from the panel, there was also an exchange store. The store offered a lot of items. According to the information provided by the system, exchanges require points called amazement points. As the name suggests, amazement points are produced when someone was amazed. An ordinary person can provide a few amazement points at a time, and the higher the person's identity and the stronger their amazement, the more amazement value they can provide. But in the 10 years since he crossed, Dean hasn't earned any amazement points. Most of his current skills and items come from the system's beginning gift pack. To test his proficiency in his skills, Dean sometimes participated in stage magic performances and also earned some extra money. Thanks to the reputation of his parents when they were alive, many theaters and circuses welcomed him on stage. As a result, Dean was also granted the title of a talented young magician. However, no matter how amazing his magic performances were on stage and how amazed the audience was, his amazement points in the system never increased. As Dean pondered the name of the system, he couldn't help but suspect that perhaps he needed to use magic and steal to earn amazement points. So, the question arises: what kind of behavior can be considered that of a mysterious thief? In Dean's mind, different names immediately came to mind: the elegant and romantic, the charming and dashing expert thief, the funny and clever childish thief. In the end, it is imagined as a clean figure, magnificent, stylish, elegant, and mysterious, a figure that embodies almost all the qualities of an expert thief. His name was Phantom Thief Kid. Chapter 2, Solving the Puzzle. After careful consideration, Dean finally decided to copy the Phantom Thief Kid. It's not that other legendary thieves weren't good, but Phantom Kid had a slight advantage when it came to producing amazement points for people. Although he had made up his mind, Dean didn't know what to do. After all, Gotham is a place known for its law-abiding citizens, where you could encounter someone on the street who might suddenly pull out a gun and start shooting randomly. More importantly, let's not forget the world's greatest detective, Batman. Without some real skills, Dean was worried he might get caught and end up in Blackgate Penitentiary right after starting his career. Well, Dean doesn't have a serious mental illness, so he's not suitable for Arkham Asylum. So, Dean spent many years training himself, honing the skills he received from the system disguise, voice changing, magic, and others to a proficient level before he dared to send out his first notice letter. That was a week ago, the one received by the Gotham Art Museum. The result wasn't great. The museum didn't take the notice letter seriously at all, so Dean easily got a jewelry bracelet. Except for a dozen security guards on patrol, no one saw Dean, and the number of amazement points he received was low. However, this operation confirmed Dean's thought that he indeed needed to perform actions under the identity of a mysterious thief to receive amazement points. Then he sent out the second notice letter and returned the bracelet as well. In order to ensure that it can attract more viewers this time, Dean went the extra mile and sent notice letters to multiple major media outlets in Gotham. He hoped that more reporters would come, helping him make a name for himself. Of course, there's also the possibility that he might make a mistake. There are still 5 days until the notice day. I wonder how GCPD will handle me. Dean walked to the window and looked at the bright Batman symbol in the sky and silently pondering. 5 days flew by in the blink of an eye, and soon it was February 19th. The Gotham Art Museum was filled with over 100 guards spread out through the exhibition halls and corridors. Half of them were GCPD officers, and the other half were security guards that the museum had hired. They kept a close eye on the visitors entering the museum, trying to find someone suspected of being the mysterious Phantom Thief Kid. Jim, this kid called Phantom Thief Kid, is he really going to show up? We've been guarding the museum for 5 whole days, and we've had several shifts. GCPD doesn't have that many resources to waste. At the entrance of the museum, 2 old detectives in trench coats were having a conversation. One of them was Commissioner Gordon. The detective speaking to him had a greasy cowboy hat on his head, a beard covering his face, and a beer belly. Harvey Bullock, a veteran detective who had worked alongside Gordon for many years, was his partner when Gordon moved to Gotham. If you ask me, that guy might have been scared off by our setup, Harvey said. Don't let your guard down, Harvey. If I'm not mistaken, today is the day he'll make his move. Gordon warned seriously. Today? Are you so sure? Harvey lit a cigarette and took a deep puff. It seemed that Gordon's warning had no effect on him. Gordon knew all too well what kind of person Harvey was. He didn't expect him to change his careless behavior. He took out the Phantom Thief Kid's notice letter from his pocket. The last drop of water falls in the transparent bottle. A newborn fish leaps out of the dried-up bottle. The trapped angel weeps in sorrow. When the flipped L appears on top of the tower, silver white wings descend guided by moonlight, wiping away the tears of the angel. Yours sincerely, Phantom Thief Kid. Based on the contents above, Gordon gave his own idea. The transparent bottle likely refers to Aquarius, and the fish symbolizes Pisces. Combining the first 2 lines, it means the last day of Aquarius has passed, and the first day of Pisces has arrived. February 19th, that's today. Harvey rubbed his chin and asked, what about the trapped angel? What does it mean? Harvey. You didn't listen during the case analysis meeting a few days ago, did you? Gordon stared and said, one of the most valuable collections in the Gotham Art Museum is called Tears of an Angel. Tears of an Angel, the treasure control of the Gotham Art Museum, is an uncut natural ruby named for its tear-like shape and deep red color. All right, now we know that Phantom Thief Kid will make a move today, and the target is a precious ruby. Harvey chuckled. So, what does the flipped L mean? On top of a tower? There is no tower-like building near the museum at all. I don't know, I still can't figure out the meaning of the last 2 lines. Gordon shook his head, showing that he also had no clue. I really don't understand what the thief has in mind these days. He goes through all these twists and turns, revealing his plans to others before he acts, even returning what he stole. So why would he steal in the first place? What's the meaning behind all these things? Bullock exhaled a mouthful of smoke rings and said in astonishment. It's just like the Riddler back in the day. No, wait, the Riddler would never return what he stole. This guy is even crazier than the Riddler. I've asked Robin for help. Maybe he can decipher the complete message. Gordon looked into the distance. The kid who always follows Batman? Haven't seen him around here, but considering he's Batman's sidekick, it's not surprising that he was difficult to find. Harvey spoke with a cigarette in his mouth. And we can't completely rely on others for our work. Gordon turned back. On the other side, on the rooftop of a tall building near the Gotham Art Museum, a young boy dressed in strange clothing was trying to solve Phantom Thief Kid's letter. February 19, Gotham Art Museum, Tears of an Angel Ruby. These clues should be correct, but what do flipped L and tower refer to? Robin looked around the museum but didn't see any buildings that looked like towers. Maybe it's not a specific building, but a symbolic representation. What kind of tower would have an object that resembles an L shape? I can think of the hands of a clock on a clock tower. His eyes squinted slightly as his thoughts became more active. L flipped over is, which reaches to 21:30 on the clock. That's the most possible explanation. But what about the silver-white wings? Does Phantom Thief Kid actually have a pair of wings? Robin pondered. It's not impossible, considering the craziness of this world. There is still an hour and a half before 9:30. I'm curious to see how this mysterious thief will descend guided by moonlight. He didn't plan to enter the museum but sat on the rooftop and waited for Phantom Thief Kid to appear. If Phantom Thief Kid truly intended to infiltrate through the sky, Robin would stop him from outside. Even if the contents of the notice letter were a distraction and Phantom Thief Kid snuck in from the ground, Robin could still see the situation from the tall building. At the same time, a patrolling security guard inside the museum quietly stretched out his hand to check the time, and there was a hint of excitement deep in his eyes. The stage is set, the countdown begins. Chapter 3, The Opening of the Grand Show. The patrolling security guard was none other than Dean, who had disguised himself with a disguise technique. As for the real security guard, he is currently tied up in the bathroom, and by the time he wakes up, everything will probably be over. Dean walks around inside the museum while observing the changes in the officers' positions in different corridors, deciding whether there is a need to adjust the plan or change the route. As the expected time gets closer, Dean's anticipation grows stronger. The last time he came to the museum, it was not as simple as walking around and leaving. He also made a lot of preparations secretly to ensure that today's operation could go smoothly. It's good not to be taken seriously. The traps I set up before are still intact. The police didn't conduct a thorough search of the museum. Fortunately, I still tried to make the trap more hidden. After confirming the safety of his setup, Dean proceeded towards the central exhibition hall on the top floor. In addition to hundreds of guards and security personnel, there are also nearly thousands of visitors spread across the upper and lower floors and more than 20 large exhibition halls in the art museum. Although the notice of the Phantom Thief Kid only mentioned the target as the Tears of an Angel, security measures in other exhibition halls should not be ignored either. Each exhibition hall should have at least 2 security guards, and all entrances, exits, and important halls need to be monitored. Not to mention, the location where the Tears of an Angel is being kept requires the most guards. As a result, there was a shortage of available manpower, especially the part responsible for patrolling. Therefore, the patrol guards didn't work in groups, making it easier for Dean to blend in with the security personnel. After all, who could have known that the Phantom Thief Kid was an expert in disguise? Even in the eyes of most GCPD officers, using so many resources to deal with a mere thief seemed extreme. The only thief in Gotham who can receive much attention is Catwoman. Is it possible that this unknown phantom thief kid is even stronger than her? The Tears of an Angel ruby was placed in the central exhibition hall on the top floor. Over 10 undercover officers blend in with the visitors, intentionally surrounding the glass display case containing the ruby. If anyone tries to approach the display case, they will be closely monitored. Gordon and Harvey had also moved to this location from the entrance. If the phantom thief kid doesn't show up today, can we consider that we fell for that bastard's prank? Harvey looked at the hundreds of people in the exhibition hall and said, "It's already 9:10. I haven't had a good night's sleep for days because of that damn letter. Jim, I'm telling you, if there's still no sign of anything by 10 o'clock, I'm leaving." He looks at Gordon with an annoyed expression on his face. "If it's really just a prank, I would feel more at ease." Gordon said it seriously. At that moment, Gordon was unaware that Phantom Thief Kid was less than 20 meters away from them, although there were several display cabinets in the middle to make the distance seem close. Dean looked at Gordon and Harvey out of the corner of his eye while pretending to admire the pearl necklace in front of him. He is no longer disguised as a security guard but has now disguised himself as an ordinary visitor. A security guard running into the central exhibition hall outside his assigned area would be too suspicious. In the same way, it is also suspicious for ordinary visitors to wander around the different guard positions if they don't take a good look. That's why Dean pretended to be a security guard before. He glanced at his watch 21:29, and the second hand had already moved halfway. The time is just right, the police, reporters, and audience are all here, and the performance should begin. Dean took out a small remote control and pressed a button. The trap that had been installed in the electrical room activated instantly. Instantly, all the lights in the museum went out, leaving it in the dark. Both Gordon and Harvey felt a shock in their hearts. They knew this was no accident. The Phantom Thief Kid was making his move. "Guards, quickly check the situation with the Tears of an Angel." Gordon immediately ordered the dozen or so guards at the scene, and then he ran towards the display case. "Reporting, Chief. The ruby hasn't been stolen yet, and we haven't found any trace of Phantom Thief Kid at the moment." The guard, who had been hiding near the display case, quickly approached and surrounded it, then loaded his gun, ready to fire at any moment. Just then, a noise came from the direction of the French windows, not far away. "Ah! What's outside the window? That looks like a big white bird. But why do I feel like that's a person?" A group of ordinary visitors gathered there, pointing outside the window in amazement. Gordon, who was halfway to the window, heard the noise and immediately recalled the mysterious line from Kid's notice letter. "When the flipped L appears on top of the tower, the silver wings will descend, guided by the moonlight." Thinking about it carefully, he realized that the floor-to-ceiling window faced east, which was exactly where the moon rises. Gordon immediately changed direction and rushed towards the window. "GCPD. It's dangerous here, civilians, move away quickly." Gordon reached the floor-to-ceiling window, shouting to drive away the crowd gathered there, and pushed his way to the front to look up outside the window. And then he saw in the night sky, a flawless figure gliding through the air, descending towards the museum. On both sides of the figure, wings spread out, several meters wide, resembling a pair of white wings. But it is impossible for a person to grow wings out of thin air. Gordon knew that it was most probably some kind of glider device, similar to what Batman often used. A round of bright moon just hung in the sky above the figure, casting its bright moonlight upon him. He stood out as the most dazzling appearance in the night sky, impossible to ignore. From a distance, it appeared as if the figure was flying down from the moon itself. "We've spotted Phantom Thief Kid, he's outside the museum. Leave a few people to guard the ruby, and everyone else gathers near the windows on the east side." The moment he saw the mysterious white shadow, Gordon immediately issued an order to all the guards through the walkie-talkie. With Gordon's command, all the police officers in the museum ran into action, rushing towards the windows on their respective floors. More than a dozen guards in the central exhibition hall moved towards Gordon, leaving only 4 guards to continue guarding the gem. Inside the exhibition hall, hundreds of confused visitors watched as the police suddenly appeared, and whispers began to spread. What's happening? Why are there GCPD officers in the museum? I have no idea, maybe there's a case going on here. I think I just saw Commissioner Gordon. If even he's here, it must be something serious. It must be related to that white bird in the sky. Maybe Gotham has a new supervillain. Not only the visitors in the top floor exhibit hall but also those on other floors noticed the white figure outside the window, and they all gathered at the windows to watch. Chapter 4, The Phantom Thief Kid appears. Inside the huge floor-to-ceiling windows on the east side of the central exhibition hall, a group of police officers, led by Gordon and Harvey, stood in a line in front of the large floor-to-ceiling window. "Jim, the Phantom Thief Kid is about to come into range," Harvey reminded Gordon. "Everyone, stand by and wait for my signal before shooting." Gordon responded loudly, his eyes locked onto the approaching Phantom Thief Kid, who was getting closer. What was once a blurry shadow became clear as his appearance became visible. The object that looked like wings also revealed its true form, a pair of glider wings. Due to the wind, the glider didn't move very fast, and it would take some time for the Phantom Thief Kid to get close to the museum. Most of the weapons carried by Gordon and the police were pistols with limited range. They needed Phantom Thief Kid to glide a bit longer before shooting an effective attack. Although they said a bit longer, in reality, it was only a matter of about 10 seconds. Everyone stared with wide eyes, waiting for the Phantom Thief Kid to come into range. However, just as he was about to reach the effective range, Phantom Thief Kid suddenly changed direction and began circling around the museum. It was as if he had noticed the police ambush inside the museum and was looking for a way to break through. At this very moment, on top of a building near the museum, Robin squatted on the rooftop, looking down at the white figure below, a glint of determination in his eyes. "I've got you now." Robin took out his grapple gun from his belt and jumped off the rooftop. When he reached a certain height, he shot his grapple gun towards the opposite building, swiftly gliding towards the Phantom Thief Kid in mid-air. His movements were incredibly fast, continuously shooting the grapple gun and hooking onto buildings on both sides, just like Spider-Man, achieving high-speed movement. The speed was even similar to a speeding car, rapidly closing the distance between Robin and the Phantom Thief Kid. Boom! In that instant, the Phantom Thief Kid in mid-air suddenly exploded, completely enveloped in a cloud of thick smoke. What? The police, who were completely focused on Phantom Thief Kid, were dumbfounded. They hadn't even made a move yet, so why did he explode? What's up with the self-destruction? Wait! No human body fell from there, Phantom Thief Kid is still inside the smoke. Robin, who had approached Phantom Thief Kid, was also shocked by the surprising explosion, but he immediately realized something was wrong. Robin swiftly swung towards the center of the smoke, and then he swung out from the other side of the smoke. There was no collision, as if there was nothing in the smoke. Bang! Robin, who went through the smoke, didn't lose speed and continued to charge forward, crashing through the museum's glass window and rolling onto the exhibition hall twice before losing speed. Almost at the same moment he landed, a ray of light suddenly lit up in the center of the exhibition hall, removing the darkness caused by the power loss. In the blink of an eye, they saw a flawless man, dressed entirely in majestic white from head to toe, who stood like a magician on stage. He attracted everyone's attention as soon as he appeared on the stage and became the focus of everyone's attention. He wore a sharp white British-style suit with a blue shirt inside and a bright red tie. On his head, he wore a white top hat with a blue pattern at the bottom of the top hat. Although there was no wind in the exhibit hall, the white cloak behind this person could move without wind, attracting people's attention. The most incredible thing was the single monocle he wore over his right eye. Even though no light hit the lens directly, it reflected backlight that almost covered his face. This weird backlight wasn't blinding, nor did it cause discomfort when looking directly at it. However, it made it impossible to see the face behind the glasses. That's Phantom Thief Kid. He just self-destructed outside, right? How did he suddenly appear here? All the police officers in the exhibition hall looked in shock at the white figure under the spotlight. Just a few seconds ago, they also saw Phantom Thief Kid gliding in the air and suddenly exploded. As a result, he was already entered inside at this moment. Is it possible that Phantom Thief Kid can teleport? That's impossible. Who is that guy? A new supervillain in Gotham? I don't know. I think GCPD calls him Phantom Thief Kid, but I've never heard of this name before. He doesn't seem to have any weapons, and he hasn't attacked anyone. Is he really a supervillain in Gotham? The hundreds of spectators in the central exhibit hall looked at Phantom Thief Kid, confused by the current situation. Their confusion wasn't just about the Phantom Thief Kid but also about themselves. Because they realized they were still alive at this moment. Okay, that might sound a bit extreme, but at least no one was hurt, which is unbelievable. It had been more than 3 minutes since the supervillain who was suspected to have made his first appearance in Gotham appeared. He hadn't pulled out a submachine gun to shoot at the crowd immediately, nor had any explosions, poison, gas, fire, or ice happened. No killings, no kidnappings, no robberies. As citizens of Gotham, they felt that they might be dreaming. But then again, compared to those familiar freaks, this guy in front of them was quite handsome. Dean felt the intense gaze of the entire crowd on him, and a surge of excitement rose inside him. The last time he felt this way was when he performed magic in front of thousands of people at Gotham's Grand Theatre. Now, the audience, although there were only a few hundred spectators, they brought him a similar sense of excitement. At the same time, although Gordon was also surprised by Phantom Thief Kid's sudden appearance, most of his attention was focused on the display case next to him. The tears of an angel were kept inside that case. He noticed that a circular opening had been cut into the glass cover of the case, and the ruby inside had long disappeared. There was no need to say more, the ruby must have fallen into Phantom Thief Kid's hands. But the more important problem was that Gordon had left 4 people to guard the ruby, yet there wasn't a single trace of an officer there now. He turned to look at the group of subordinates beside him. There was exactly the same number as all the security guards in the exhibit hall. They didn't follow Gordon's orders. Didn't I ask you to keep a few of you to guard the ruby? Why are you all here? Gordon suppressed his anger and questioned his subordinates. He never expected that, after nearly 20 years of restructuring the police force in Gotham, there would still be subordinates who didn't follow orders. Yes, Gotham Police Department can never be completely clean of rats, but they usually went against orders behind Gordon's back, and no one dared to play tricks in front of Gordon. Sir! Didn't you personally tell us to come over and support? The 4 guards in charge of guarding stepped forward with strange expressions and asked. Upon hearing this, Gordon couldn't help but burst into laughter. When did I say? Before Gordon could finish his sentence, a voice rang throughout the exhibition hall interrupting him. Ladies and gentlemen. Looking in the direction of the voice, they saw Phantom Thief Kid slightly open his arms and use his clear voice to announce the start of the show to everyone. It's showtime. Bang! 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 As soon as the words fell, a burst of gunshots suddenly sounded from behind Dean. Chapter 5, Kid and Robin. The gunshots suddenly rang out, but Dean remained unfazed as if he had expected it. At almost the exact moment the gunshots sounded, or perhaps even a split second before, Dean had already reacted. Dean quickly turned to face the direction of the bullet coming and quickly grabbed a corner of his cloak, raising it high to cover his whole body. As the pure white cloak covered Dean's entire body, the bullets that were shot at him hit the cloak. However, the powerful bullets didn't penetrate through the cloak. Instead, they were bounced off as if they had hit an extremely elastic object. And the kinetic energy of these bullets seemed to disappear suddenly. They didn't fly off at high speed but instead fell just 2 meters in front of Dean with a tinkling sound. Meanwhile, Phantom Thief Kid's white cloak remained clean and unmarked. After blocking the bullets, Dean didn't stop moving. With his right hand, he smoothly pulled the cloak back behind him with his right hand, while quickly flickering with his left hand towards the group of people firing their guns. Whoosh! 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 In an instant, several playing cards flew out from Dean's hand, shooting towards each gun in front of him with astonishing speed and force. The trajectory of the playing cards was incredible, as if they had a life of their own. Each card accurately and precisely knocked down a gun. What? How is that possible? Everyone who witnessed this scene was astonished, especially the group of people who had seriously attacked Phantom Thief Kid. If they hadn't experienced it personally, they wouldn't have believed that playing cards could have a strong force. The Phantom Thief Kid's bulletproof cloak wasn't the most surprising thing. After all, in this day and age, there are all sorts of lightweight bulletproof materials that can withstand bullets. What was truly shocking was Phantom Thief Kid's inhuman reflexes, speed, his calm composure, and the fact that he used his hand to catch the bullets with the cloak without getting injured. Not only did he avoid injury, but he also managed to knock down multiple guns by just playing cards in the hands of more than a dozen people at once. Just playing cards. Who could do something like this? Who fired the shots without authorization? On the other side, Gordon was furious at the unexpected gunshots, his face gloomy as if it could drip water. Since an art museum is a public place with hundreds of citizens in the exhibition hall, Gordon previously strictly instructed his subordinates to wait for orders before shooting their guns inside. He knew what Gotham's police officers could do if left wild. Once he saw the shooter of the other person, Gordon's expression improved slightly, but he was still dissatisfied. It turned out that the person who had fired was not from the GCPD but rather an armed security guard in the museum. Unlike the GCPD officers, the security guards employed by the museum didn't have to follow Gordon's orders. They would shoot on the spot whenever they saw a threat. Even if it resulted in accidental killings, the museum's management would handle the situation, or so at least that's what they were told. Gordon was dissatisfied about this, but he had no way and no position to stop it because, on this property, the security guards' actions were legal and compliant. We'll discuss the matter of the four of you disobeying orders later. Right now, everyone spread to the sides and surrounds Phantom Thief Kid, and ensure that the civilians stay behind the perimeter. Gordon quickly regained his composure and gave orders to the surrounding guards. While everyone was amazed by the performance of Phantom Thief Kid, Dean's situation was not as good. Gah! My hand feels numb. It would have been better to dodge the bullets directly. Blocking the bullets with his cloak and attacking with throwing cards seemed cool and stylish, but the price was that Dean's right hand had been numb until now. Luckily, his bulletproof cloak came from the system and had the ability to absorb kinetic energy. Otherwise, even if the bullets didn't pierce through with regular bulletproof materials, Dean's hand would have been useless. But even though most of the bullet's kinetic energy was absorbed, it still produced a strong sense of numbness when it was delivered to Dean's right hand. It felt like his elbow suddenly hit the table. But well, everything had its pros and cons. While he paid a price, he expected a reward in return. In the scene just now, he was given over 400 amazement points from the hundreds of visitors and guards combined. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. My opening speech was interrupted by an unexpected situation. For that, I apologize and ask for your understanding. Dean endured the numbness in his hand and maintained a calm smile on his face as he bowed deeply to the crowd. Is he serious? I never imagined a criminal to be so polite. Oh my goodness, this is insane. The hundreds of civilians in the audience looked at the bowing and apologetic Phantom Thief Kid with a sense of stupidity. Fine, I accept your apology, but that's something for after you go to prison. At that moment, an unfriendly voice sounded from the side. As soon as the voice landed, Dean felt a gust of wind coming from his side. Before Dean could even recognize who it was, a gust of wind suddenly hit him from the side. Without hesitation, Dean reflexively moved his body backward. Then, a leg came into Dean's line of sight, grazing just a few centimeters in front of his nose. If Dean hadn't moved back in time, that kick would likely have hit his face. "Don't you know you're not supposed to hit people in the face? Robin, or should I call you Wonder Boy?" Dean quickly moved a few steps back and calmly spoke to the attacker. "I'll accept both names, they sound better than Phantom Thief Kid anyway." Robin withdrew his right leg after the failed kick and stared at Phantom Thief Kid, looking for an opening to attack. "Sigh, I had planned to finish my first performance properly today, but it was interrupted by you guys again and again. It's really upsetting for me." Dean sighed and covered his forehead with his hand, pretending to be bothered. "I usually don't like to talk with criminals before arresting them. What I just said already violates my rules." Robin tilted his head and was about to jump on Dean. The distance between them was only a few steps, and they could be face to face in just 2 or 3 steps. However, just as Robin took his first step, he faintly noticed a slight upward curve at the corner of Dean's mouth. That expression, like a smug grin that naturally appeared after a successful scheme. Robin suddenly thought of Batman, once said. "Don't underestimate any opponent, especially when they quietly smiling." Could it be that Phantom Thief Kid was plotting something and waiting for him to get closer? Filled with suspicion, Robin's movement shortly stopped. During this stop, Dean's smile grew even more obvious. "I would love to play with you a little longer, little bird, but unfortunately." Dean stretched out his hand, holding a vintage pocket watch that appeared out of nowhere. The watch displayed the time as 9:35. "Now, it's time for the final act of the stage." Chapter 6, The Farewell Gift. At the moment when Phantom Thief Kid showed the pocket watch, the power in the museum was suddenly restored. On each floor, in every exhibition hall, all the lights brightened, and the once dark surroundings were instantly filled with light. The spotlight that was shining on Phantom Thief Kid had already been turned off. When people's eyes adapted to the darkness and suddenly entered a bright environment, there would be a short moment of bad vision. In other words, at the moment when the lights in the museum were restored, everyone in the building lost sight of Phantom Thief Kid. Even Robin, who was trained, was soon blinded by the sudden change. "Goodbye, Wonder Boy." At that moment, Phantom Thief Kid's voice drifted into Robin's ears. As soon as the voice faded, Robin's vision immediately returned. He immediately turned his head towards Phantom Kid and then heard a loud thud. Suddenly, a cloud of smoke enveloped him in front of him. Strangely, this cloud of smoke only lasted a very short time before dissipating. Maybe a second or two, or even less than a second. Basically, when Robin saw the smoke engulfing the Phantom Thief Kid, the smoke was already showing signs of dissipating. Robin didn't know what Phantom Thief Kid planned for using this kind of smoke bomb that would dissipate quickly. The two are in the center of the exhibition hall, not too far from any of the 4 walls. It was almost impossible for Phantom Thief Kid to escape before the smoke cleared. The museum's entrance was behind Phantom Thief Kid, and there were more than a dozen security guards there. Although they had just been knocked out of their weapons, they would have enough time to get their guns now. Not to mention the other security personnel from other floors were also rushing over here. Robin didn't believe that Phantom Thief Kid's skills could take down so many people in such a short time. If Phantom Kid didn't go through the main entrance but planned to go around and jump out the window from the opposite side, he would run with Gordon and the GCPD. Even if these 2 reasons were put aside, Robin had the most simple and direct evidence. That is, he hadn't heard any footsteps and hadn't seen anyone appear from the smoke. In other words, in theory, Phantom Thief Kid should be hiding within the range of the smoke. But is that really the case? Robin didn't think so. It doesn't make any sense to throw a smoke bomb that would quickly dissipate in no time and then stay in the same spot. It couldn't disturb the opponent or help him escape. Why would Phantom Thief Kid go through all this trouble? There must be a dummy in it. Just like the dummy that appeared in the sky above the museum earlier, which was used to draw everyone's attention. Sure enough, when the smoke cleared, Phantom Thief Kid, who was supposed to be inside the smoke, disappeared without a trace. Great, one problem solved, but a new problem popped up. Where did that guy go? Robin squinted his eyes and looked around. Within a radius of 10 meters, there was no wall for the Phantom Thief Kid to hide behind except for various transparent glass cases. Just then, he suddenly heard a strange noise coming from above his head. Clang, clang, clang. He immediately looked up and saw that the ceiling above him was actually a ventilation duct. A ventilation duct? Could it be that Phantom Thief Kid took the opportunity to climb into the ventilation shaft just now? That was definitely not possible. The ventilation ducts in the museum were small, and there was no way a person could crawl inside. The shutters of the ventilation duct were still in perfect condition, with no signs of being removed. It's not just Robin's side, there are a total of 6 ventilation ducts in the exhibition hall, and each vent makes a similar sound. Hey, did you hear that strange noise? One sharp visitor near a ventilation duct was the first to hear the sound and asked his friend. What sound? Wait, it sounds like there's something making a noise. I heard it too, it's coming from the ventilation duct. More and more people noticed the unusual movement above them. Listen, the sound is getting closer, it's like something is about to come out of the ventilation duct. A visitor pointed to the ventilation duct on the ceiling and shouted loudly. The fear of the unknown and curiosity drove the citizens of Gotham to look up at the ventilation ducts. Of course, no one dared to stand directly below the ducts. What if something dangerous came out? Robin did the same. He took several steps back, keeping a close eye on the increasingly loud noise from the ventilation duct. At that moment, Dean, who was hiding somewhere, smiled slightly, stretched out his right hand, and snapped his fingers. Snap! With a crisp sound, the disturbance inside the ventilation duct finally burst out. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. It was a flood of white cards with texts and the image of the Phantom Thief Kid flying out of the gaps between the gaps of each ventilation duct. The number of these cards was astonishing, continuously pouring out from the ventilation system, covering the entire exhibition hall like rain. Immediately afterwards, a scent of flowers began to fill the air. Along with the white overflow pouring from the ventilation ducts, many small red objects also floated out. These objects were lighter than the cards and dropped more slowly. Ah! They're flower petals, rose petals. Among the crowd, several young and beautiful girls caught a few of them and were surprised to find that they were rose petals. The petals, mixed with the cards, filled every corner of the scene. Soon, Phantom Thief Kid's cards were all finished, but the petals continued to fall. Endless red petals slowly drifted down, filling the entire space with a captivating scent. On the other hand, Robin was not interested in the petals. He picked up one of the tightly scattered cards that had fallen to the ground. The card had the same design as Kid's last announcement but with different content. I would like to dedicate this flower rain to the audience of my first performance. Thank you for the fateful encounter that made you and me intertwined. I will present more exciting performances in the future, please look forward to it. Sincerely, Phantom Thief Kid. After reading the contents of the card, Robin fell silent for a moment. He silently picked up another card with the same content. Each card contained a message from the Phantom Thief Kid. A future performance, hey? This is a hint that there will be another crime. Robin crumpled the card into a ball, his eyes filled with a competitive expression. At first, I thought he was just a small thief, but I didn't expect him to be quite capable. I was careless this time, but I'll catch you next time. Robin looked deeply at the chaotic scene, filled with petals and cards raining down. He had no intention of staying here any longer. He shot a grapple gun towards the ceiling above the glass window, jumping high into the air within the exhibition hall. Just as he swung out of the window, his figure disappeared into the night. Chapter 7, Chapter 7, Store. This thing looks pretty nice. In a quiet and deserted alley, Dean took out the tears of an angel and pretended to admire the ruby under the moonlight. The tear-shaped ruby reflected a faint halo under the moonlight, creating a beautiful sight. For Dean, this gesture didn't have any valuable meaning, it just made the ruby look better from an artistic point of view. At least, that's how he felt psychologically. After appreciating it for a while, Dean started to feel a bit tired of enjoying it and decided to put the ruby back. I should return it sometime. It wouldn't do Dean any good to keep this thing, and while it was quite valuable, Dean wasn't too short on money. Even if Dean really wanted to sell this thing, he didn't have a reliable channel to sell it. Should he go to Gotham's black market? Forget it, they would only give him a bit of its real value. Penguin might offer slightly better, estimating he could offer 15%, but that would be the best he could get. But in the end, Dean didn't need that money. Returning the ruby would actually benefit Dean even more. Just imagine a thief who is greedy for wealth versus a strange thief who ignores wealth. Which one would be more mysterious? And, which one would make people think this person might be crazy? Creating a topic, causing a buzz, and possibly gaining more amazement points. Dean didn't consider himself a generous person, but he could tell between the pros and cons. Unless he really stole a super artifact, like the mother box, then it would be worth keeping. At that moment, Dean's ears were suddenly filled with the sound of a prompt from the system. Congratulations, host, on completing a custom task, steal the tears of an angel ruby. Mission difficulty, easy, easy, normal, difficult, extreme, desperate, impossible. Treasure value, low, low, average, normal, excellent, outstanding, rare, legendary, incalculable. Special note, a treasure with at least one extraordinary characteristic can be evaluated as a normal quality. Elegance level, C, D, C, B, A, S, SS, SSS. Overall evaluation, C, average, slightly better than an ordinary person. Rewards, 514 amazement points, midway earned, plus 600 amazement points, task completion, totaling 1114 amazement points. After listening to the system's prompt, Dean's eyes revealed a mix of surprise and joy. It was a surprise that he didn't pop up this so-called custom task in the museum last time. Does this mean that the system has activated a new function of giving missions? Dean immediately summoned the system to check. However, when he opened the system interface, he didn't find any task page, yet his total amazement points had indeed increased to 1114. Rubbing his chin, Dean fell in thought. It seemed like this system didn't have official missions, and all actions must depend on the host's own choice. Moreover, in addition to the amazement points collected by oneself in the mission, the completion of the mission itself will also be rewarded by the system. Overall, Dean was satisfied with this. He didn't want to just mechanically complete missions assigned by the system. Now that I have over 1,000 amazement points, let's see what I can exchange for. Dean entered the exchange mall with anticipation. An overload of items filled Dean's vision, causing his pupils to dilate in excitement. Multiverse reality modifier, can freely set or modify anything within the multiverse, 1 trillion amazement points. 5 divine armor, perfectly deflects attacks from enemies of any level within the multiverse, 800 billion amazement points. Cronus time bomb, can destroy the entire timeline of the multiverse, 1 trillion amazement points. Dean fell silent for a long time, then changed the shop's sorting order from low to high prices, and then cool beach swim trunks, 2 amazement points. High frequency electric toothbrush, 10 amazement points. Abandoned manuscript of an unknown author, 5 amazement points. Different regular items or junk, none costing more than 30 points. Dean silently scrolled through the interface and selected items in the price range of 500 to 1000 points. Finally, the items returned to normal. Suddenly, Dean discovered an interesting item. Low-level resistance talent card. After use, you can permanently gain a low-level talent resistance skin, 1000 amazement points. Resistance skin. Low-level can reduce 10% of damage caused by special attributes such as burn, freeze, corrosion, and toxins and accelerate the healing of such injuries. After some thought, Dean immediately made the decision to exchange for this talent card. With his current strength and wealth, strengthening his defensive abilities was the best choice. After completing the exchange, Dean left the system feeling satisfied. Some time later, Gotham Art Museum. Due to the stealing of the Tears of an Angel ruby, and the central exhibition hall being covered in petals and cards, the museum had to close early. The museum, including visitors, security guards, and other staff, had to go through GCPD's careful interrogation before leaving, but the ruby was not found in the end. Even Commissioner Gordon conducted an inside investigation among the officers, but the result remained the same. Nobody knew how Phantom Thief Kid suddenly appeared, nor how he suddenly disappeared. Not even the museum's surveillance cameras failed to capture a single image of Phantom Thief Kid. It would be fine if Phantom Thief Kid was dressed in a low-key way, which was very good for hiding. However, from head to toe, he was entirely dressed in white, which should have made him eye-catching at night. Yet, he didn't leave any clues for the police. It was incredible, almost like a fantasy. In front of the museum's lawn, Commissioner Gordon sat on the flower bed and lit a cigarette, and smoked. "I thought you switched to smoking a pipe." At this time, Harvey, who was also smoking a cigarette, came over. "Harvey, don't bring that up. We're still good partners." Gordon raised his eyebrows and said in a bad mood. "Tell me, did you find anything?" "Guess what? There is a new discovery." Harvey replied without beating around the bush, giving Gordon a complete report of the information they received. 12 minutes ago, someone found a patrolling security guard in one of the museum's bathrooms, or more precisely, the guard intentionally made himself be found because his hands and feet were tied and locked in the cubicle. While we were conducting a thorough search of the museum, someone heard the guard struggling and rescued him. The guard said he was suddenly knocked out while patrolling, and the attacker hit him from behind with a heavy object. So, he didn't know the attacker's identity, and he didn't wake up until 15 minutes ago. As Gordon listened, his eyes narrowed slightly. "You think the person who knocked out the patrolling guard is Phantom Thief Kid?" It sounded like a question, but the tone was sure because Gordon also held the same thought. "The weirdest things don't start until now." Harvey continued, "According to what the security guard said, he was knocked out 2 hours ago, but within those 2 hours of his unconsciousness, more than one patrolling officer saw him, and there is even surveillance footage of the guard patrolling in the surveillance." Upon hearing this, Gordon's expression changed instantly. Chapter 8, News. Gordon stood up abruptly from the flower bed and accidentally dropped the cigarette he had just lit on the ground. "So you're saying that during the 2 hours the security guard was unconscious, Phantom Thief Kid disguised himself as him inside the museum, and even his colleagues who had known him for a long time didn't recognize him?" Gordon asked with a serious expression. Indeed, if Phantom Thief Kid had this ability, it would explain why they couldn't find any trace of him. It wasn't that the surveillance cameras didn't capture Phantom Thief Kid, but they couldn't determine which person in the footage was Phantom Thief Kid. Harvey glanced regretfully at the dropped cigarette on the ground before turning back and saying, "Jim, do you remember those 4 officers who were in charge of guarding the ruby before? They said you personally instructed them to change their positions." When Gordon heard Harvey mention this, he immediately understood. They weren't lying, but what they saw wasn't me, it was Phantom Thief Kid disguised as me. Based on the information we have so far, that's the only conclusion we can draw. Harvey summarized. Ordinary disguise techniques probably wouldn't achieve this effect. Gordon pondered for a moment and said, "This reminds me of that guy at Arkham. Clayface. Do you think Phantom Thief Kid might be related to him? Harvey's expression also became serious. Anyone who could be connected to that group of lunatics was not easy to deal with. It's hard to say for now. I'll pay a visit to Arkham Asylum and have a talk with Clayface. Gordon decided on his schedule for the next day. There shouldn't be much left to find in the museum. Let's wrap up. With that, the two of them gathered their subordinates and left the museum. The next day, a news article caused a sensation among all the citizens of Gotham City. Shocking! GCPD and Robin teamed up but were lost by a mysterious thief. This article occupied the entire front page of the Gotham Gazette, reporting in detail Phantom Thief Kid's process of committing the crime yesterday. A large close-up photo was also published in the newspaper of Phantom Thief Kid's debut in the exhibition hall under the light of spotlights. That white suit, elegant demeanor, slender figure, and the monocle full of mysterious reflections. It reveals a kind of strange charm that people can't see the face clearly, but it makes people think that Phantom Kid must be handsome. Who took this photo? They're quite skilled. They captured at least 1/10 of my charm. In the 4th grade classroom at Gotham Academy, sitting in the second-to-last row near the window, Dean read the newspaper he had just bought, shamelessly thinking to himself. Dean looked at the name of the reporter who wrote this article, a woman named Vicky Vale. Vicky Vale, she's quite famous in Gotham. It is said that she has an affair with billionaire Bruce Wayne. Dean's eyes lit up with an idea. I was thinking of a way to return the ruby, maybe this is a good choice. In the classroom, besides Dean, there was clearly more than one student interested in Phantom Thief Kid. Discussions about Kid continued to buzz in Dean's ears. Did you guys see the news today? Gotham has a new supervillain. Of course, GCPD and the media are calling him Phantom Thief Kid. It's a strange name, but it's better than something like Two-Face. Some people heard about it, while others didn't. What Phantom Thief? What are you guys talking about? One classmate, who clearly doesn't follow the news, asked in confusion. The classmate sitting next to him rolled his eyes at him. Dude, you really need to get more in touch with society so you don't fall behind. We are talking about a supervillain named Phantom Thief Kid. He stole the Tears of an Angel ruby from the Gotham Art Museum yesterday, even when both GCPD and Robin were present at the same time. GCPD? It's not surprising that the ruby got stolen, but it's impressive that Phantom Thief Kid managed to steal it in front of Robin and get away with it. And there's something even more impressive. The Phantom Thief Kid is different from other criminals. It's said that he sent a notice letter to the museum and the police several days before the stealing, including the time, place, and method. Hey? So the police knew he was going to steal something in advance? They could have set up a trap. That's what I'm saying. But even so, Phantom Thief Kid managed to successfully steal the ruby. I really don't know if Phantom Thief Kid is just that good or if GCPD is just stupid. The classmate who didn't follow the news couldn't help but comment. This is Gotham, you'll get used to it. While the discussion about Phantom Thief Kid was heated among the boys, the girls were just as interested. While boys focused more on how talented Phantom Thief Kid was, girls paid more attention to his appearance and charm. Who could resist a mysterious and attractive guy? Humph. Just as Dean enjoyed listening to the discussions of his classmates, a cold snort came from behind him. Well, Dick Grayson, what's got you so angry? Who annoyed you? Dean turned around with a playful smile. There sat a black-haired teenager, Richard Grayson, who was about the same age as Dean. They had been friends since high school. Dick was Richard's nickname, and it was the name he always used. When introducing himself to others, he would also call himself Dick Grayson. They had many things in common: age, height, even the color of their irises. They both had the same orphan background. The only difference was that after the death of his parents, Dick was adopted by none other than billionaire Bruce Wayne. Yes, the legendary Batman. Although Dean hadn't been exposed to DC Comics much in his previous life, but he knew that Batman's real name was Bruce Wayne. So, it was quite obvious to figure out who Dick was from Bruce's identity. Batman's partner, Robin, matched Dick in age and build, so it was highly likely it was him. Of course, Dean had kept this information to himself, and Dick was unaware that Dean already knew his secret. Dick's cold snort just now was probably because he remembered their failed attempt to catch Phantom Thief Kid last night and felt annoyed. "Come on, Dick, tell me what's bothering you, let me brighten your day." Dean smirked and teasingly said to Dick. "Hey! We're friends, but using me as a source of entertainment, does your conscience not hurt?" Dick responded with a serious face. "It's precisely because we're friends that I want to know what's on your mind, because you might need my psychological advice. You know, I've taken classes in psychology." Dean's expression suddenly turned serious, and he stared at Dick. "Haha. Yeah, psychology. You think you're funny, don't you?" Dick crossed his arms, and the corners of his mouth twitched. Chapter 9, Vicky Vale. "All right, enough joking around." Dean waved his hand casually and said, "I understand how you feel, Dick. You're from the Wayne family, and who knows how many valuable treasures in this city belong to your family. It wouldn't be surprising if one day, Phantom Thief Kid stole something from you. So it's normal to feel uncomfortable when you hear others talking about the thief." "What? I don't think like that at all." Dick was taken aback by the Dean's words and instinctively replied. "I just think that people shouldn't admire a criminal." He stared at Dean solemnly, with a serious attitude. "Dean, what about you? Do you also like Phantom Thief Kid like everyone else?" "What I meant to say is, you're right. I agree with your perspective. A criminal will always be a criminal, and sooner or later, the Phantom Thief Kid will be caught. Then everyone will see his true colors." Under Dick's gaze, Dean shook his head heavily. "That's right, GCPD, Batman and Robin won't let Phantom Thief Kid get away with it." With Dean's agreement, a delighted expression appeared on Dick's face. "But at first, I thought you would be into the whole Phantom Thief Kid thing. After all, his disguise and techniques are much like a magician's." Dick shrugged and casually added, "You're also a magician, so you might feel a bit involved with him. Although I don't really understand the world of magicians." "Who says magicians will feel involved just because they are magicians?" Dean raised an eyebrow, his eyes widened, and his face filled with disdain. "Haven't you heard the saying, rivals in the same work? And those little tricks with smoke bombs and dummies he uses aren't even advanced magic. They're just basic beginner techniques in magic. If I were Phantom Thief Kid, I would definitely do it better than him." After listening to Dean's bold speech, Dick fell into silence for a moment. But from a certain point of view, what Dean said was quite convincing. On the one hand, there was a talented magician who became famous at a young age, and on the other side was a mysterious thief who had just appeared recently. The mysterious thief's information was very limited, and he had shown very little of his abilities. At the same time, Dean had proven his skills at the Gotham Grand Theatre and had the capital to be arrogant. "Well, you're amazing." After a while, Dick finally said those words. Ding-ling-ling. At that moment, the bell signaling the start of class rang, and a wise and amazing middle-aged teacher walked into the classroom. Dean turned his body back and sat down, getting into study mode. At least, that's what it seemed like on the outside. Was I too excited just now? Did mentioning the magician's identity make me nervous? Dean pondered in his mind, facing away from Dick. "Don't overthink it. Keep a poker face. Dick has no reason to suspect me. So what if I'm a magician? There are plenty of magicians in the world. It's impossible for him to point fingers at me just because of this suspicion." With a determined thought, Dean temporarily suppressed the ideas in his mind. He didn't need to clear himself at the moment, he just needed to act normal. Meanwhile, Dick was also having a brainstorming session. I must be going crazy. Dean couldn't possibly be the Phantom Thief kid. It's all because Alfred casually mentioned that I have a classmate who seems to be a magician, which led me to come up with this completely unreasonable and ridiculous guess. It must be because I've been too careless lately, which caused me to fail at catching Phantom Thief Kid last night and made me a bit paranoid. So, after simple self-psychology guidance, both of them thought that they were just overthinking. As time passed, it was soon 4 o'clock in the afternoon. As the school bell rang, the teacher closed the book quickly and walked out of the classroom. The action was smooth and swift, with no hesitations. There was no chance of delaying the class. Not in this lifetime. Dean packed his book and was about to leave the school when he heard someone calling his name. "Hey! Sutton, Grayson, wanna play basketball together?" He turned his head and saw a boy wearing a black shirt and gray suspenders, holding a basketball around his waist. He waved at Dean and Dick, followed by 3 or 5 other boys. "Not today, Patrick. I have something important to do tonight," said Dick, declining the invitation first. After saying that, he jumped out of the window and ran towards the school gate. Of course, the classroom was on the first floor, so there was no possibility of getting hurt. Seeing that one of their basketball buddies was skipping, Patrick looked at Dean with hopeful eyes. "Oh! I have to go back and practice magic now. You know, I need to prepare for the campus dance performance next month. So I can't play with you guys." Dean shrugged with both hands and showed a helpless expression. "That's too bad." Patrick looked disappointed but didn't force Dean to stay, so he went to the basketball court with several other boys. Dean didn't pay much attention to this little incident. He quickly returned home because he had something very important to do in the evening. That was to send away the tears of an angel Ruby. Dean changed into a casual outfit, put on a baseball cap, and brought a few masks with him before leaving home. At night, on the 29th floor of the Gotham Gazette building, in the office of the star reporter Vicky Vale. Vicky stopped writing the news that had been in writing for a long time, stretched her waist, checked it carefully several times, and smiled with satisfaction after confirming that there was no major problem. It must be said that these past few days were some of her most lucky days. After the headline news of Phantom Thief Kid, the sales of the Gotham Gazette newspaper skyrocketed, and Vicky's reputation as a reporter also increased a lot. It all started a few days ago when Phantom Thief Kid's case hadn't happened yet. In order to increase his exposure, Dean sent notice letters to all major media organizations in Gotham. But at that time, no one had heard of this name, and the contents of the advance notice were quite mysterious, so naturally, few people took it seriously. However, Vicky Vale did not ignore the notice. She had personally interviewed many supercriminals from Arkham Asylum, such as Two-Face, Penguin, Riddler, and Scarecrow. When she saw the advance notice from Phantom Kid, she felt that it was something the Riddler would write. Of course, Edward Nygma, also known as the Riddler, was currently locked up in Arkham Asylum, so it couldn't be him who wrote the notice letter. This is also the thought of the majority of people. Everyone thinks that this notice letter is a prank. Only Vicky didn't think so. Although she wasn't sure, she thought it was worth taking a chance. Luckily, she was right. She not only was one of the few reporters who went to the museum but also took the best close-up shot of the Phantom Thief Kid. This made Phantom Thief Kid's stealing of the tears of an angel almost an exclusive news for Vicky. Chapter 10, The World's Most Precious Pink Diamond. Looking at the current discussion sparked by Phantom Thief Kid, it shows the endless value of this exclusive news in the media world. The reporters who didn't take the notice seriously at first probably regret it now. And Vicky Vale, who created all this, has gained a higher position in the Gotham Gazette. The boss even doubled her bonus for this month. Finally, put this photo in. Perfect. Vicky worked on her office computer a few times, and tonight's work was coming to an end. Hehe, this article is definitely going to be on the front page tomorrow. she thought confidently. At that moment, a knocking sound suddenly came from the door. Knock, knock, knock. Come in. The office door was pushed open, and a thin man walked in. The man had a camera hanging around his neck, so he must be a photographer. What can I do for you, Norris? Vicky asked, looking at the man curiously. Miss Vale, you've been working for a long time without a break. I thought maybe you could have a cup of coffee. Norris raised his right hand, and Vicky noticed that he was holding a pot of coffee. It was freshly ground by me, and I guarantee it tastes better than the coffee shop downstairs. Norris was a young photographer who joined the Gotham Gazette 3 years ago, and Vicky was his mentor back then. They often run news stories together. However, they didn't have much talk in private, it was mostly work-related. It might be because Norris is a bit shy. Vicky didn't expect that the shy young man she knew would take the initiative to make coffee for himself and send it over. It was a little unusual. Vicky's eyes flickered, wondering if Norris might have some kind of interest in her. Norris, you should know that I already have a partner, right? She suddenly sat up, leaning her back against the chair and crossing her arms in front of her chest. Upon hearing this, Norris froze on the spot but soon realized what she meant. No, Miss Vale, you've misunderstood. I just thought you must be tired after working for so long, so as a junior in the workplace, I brewed this pot of coffee for you, hoping you could take a break. Norris shook his hands repeatedly, trying to show that it was not what she thought, his face turning red. You have been my mentor, guiding and taking care of me in my work, and I'm grateful for that. It's just like that, I don't have any inappropriate ideas about making a move. Vicky chuckled at Norris's flustered response. His behavior now seemed to match the impression she had of him. Norris, you're taking it too seriously. Even if you have any thoughts, it doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. What I mean is that I want you to know that Vicky Vale is not a woman who dates multiple people. Norris nodded repeatedly, then carefully asked, what about this coffee? Please put it on the table. I will enjoy your coffee. Thank you for your effort. Vicky smiled faintly. Norris immediately walked in with the coffee pot and took an ordinary glass from the cupboard in the corner of the office. After pouring a cup, he placed it on the desk along with the coffee pot. When he leaned over to put down the coffee, Norris accidentally caught sight of the news draft on Vicky's computer screen. The first thing that caught his eye was a very beautiful pebble-shaped pink diamond in the photo, about the size of a pigeon's egg. Then there was the article's title, "The world's most precious pink diamond will be auctioned in Gotham," with the suspected backer being Penguin. As a media worker, Norris's curiosity was instantly ignited. Is this the article you've been working on for so long today? Can I take a look? Norris made a somewhat strange request. If it's you, no problem. And let me know your opinion after reading it. I need some reader feedback. Vicky had great confidence in Norris and turned the screen towards him openly. The content of the news draft is similar to the title and is closely related to an upcoming auction in Gotham's upper class. The highlight of this auction is a 70-carat pink diamond, which is its weight after it was carved. The original size of the rough diamond was over 200 carats, making it the largest pink diamond ever discovered. Pink diamonds are already a rare type of diamond, and one of this size is extremely rare, not seen in hundreds of years. It is definitely a valuable item. Although this pink diamond is worth a fortune, it is not enough to make a big news in Gotham. You see, the general public is not interested in this level of rare treasures, only rich and wealthy people would care about these things. However, there are rumors talking about this seemingly ordinary auction that the actual seller behind the pink diamond is Penguin. According to the current registration records, the auction of the pink diamond is being conducted by a local international shipping company in Gotham. The company's business operations are entirely legal, and its financial records are obvious. It doesn't seem like they have any close relationship with criminals. But precisely because everything seems fine with this company, there are rumors that the real owner of the company is Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin. The investigation results on the company's business, and accounts were all forged by the Penguin people bribing the relevant departments. Even this so-called world's rarest supersized pink diamond could be a modern technology fake. It is impossible to determine who started these rumors, and there is absolutely no evidence to support them. But well, this is Gotham, where many things don't need evidence, and it's impossible to find evidence as well. Vicky collected all the rumors, combined them with her own ideas, and completed the current news draft. Unlike some lower-level media, Vicky didn't treat these things as facts to be reported but rather highlighted the rumors. Amazing! Miss Vale truly lived up to her reputation. She easily wrote a report that other media professionals couldn't dream of writing. After reading it, Norris couldn't help but exclaim, "If this article doesn't make the front page, then our boss must have gone crazy." "Oh, it's not that good," Vicky chuckled. "It's getting late now, and I still have some work left unfinished, so I'll leave first." Afterward, Norris chatted a little more with Vicky and then said goodbye. Watching Norris walk out of the door, Vicky suddenly felt a bit thirsty. It was normal since she had been perfecting her draft and hadn't drunk much water. Plus, she had talked a lot with Norris. It would be strange if she didn't feel thirsty. Vicky picked up the cup of coffee that Norris had poured earlier. The temperature was just right to take a sip. When Vicky picked up the cup, a small object suddenly emerged from the bottom of the cup, which looked like a white ball of paper. Vicky put down the cup and opened up the piece of paper with a frown. In an instant, the paper ball unfolded, and Vicky's pupil shrunk. On it was written, "Dear Miss Vale, I have read your report about me, and the content is very well written. I am truly grateful that you were willing to come watch my first performance yesterday and take that perfect close-up shot of me. To express my gratitude to you, I have decided to give you a little surprise, but you can only see it after you finish your coffee. Please remember to drink it all. Yours sincerely, Phantom Thief Kid." Chapter 11, Returning Tears of an Angel. The crumpled paper turned out to be a letter from the Phantom Thief Kid. Vicky was shocked. She clearly remembered that there was nothing on the table before Norris put the cup of coffee down. Without wasting any time, Vicky immediately rushed out of the office to look for Norris. At that moment, she had only one thought in her mind: if I could interview Phantom Thief Kid in person, then. Unfortunately, there were many people coming and going in the hallway, and she couldn't find the person she was looking for. Vicky thought for a moment and went to the front desk on the floor, asking, "Lily, have you seen Norris?" The receptionist glanced at Vicky in surprise and asked, "Vicky, do you know where Norris's ID card is?" "ID card?" Vicky didn't understand at first. "Yes, Norris called me just now and said he was stopped at the entrance because he couldn't find his ID card," the receptionist explained. "Wait, let me get this straight. Norris is currently stuck outside the company's gate, and he lost his ID?" Vicky asked with a puzzled look. "I remember seeing him when I checked in this morning. Wasn't he inside the company all the time?" "Oh, right, you don't know about this. Norris went downstairs to the cafe half an hour ago to buy coffee. I heard he bought it especially for you. His ID must have been lost there, but he said that he searched all over the coffee shop and couldn't find it." The receptionist tilted her head and thought. "So, Norris had to ask for my help to call the security to let him in." The receptionist continued, and then she furrowed her brow as if trying to recall something. "But there's something strange. I thought I saw someone who looks a lot like Norris coming in just now. He also had a coffee in his hand, and I thought it was him who came back, but it wasn't. Maybe I was mistaken." "Stop! That's the person." Vicky interrupted the receptionist and asked urgently, "Did you see this person who looks like Norris leave?" "No." The receptionist replied with certainty, I'm sure that person hasn't left yet, at least not when I last saw him." Upon hearing those words, Vicky knew that she had no chance of catching up with the Phantom Thief Kid. She remembered the coffee that Phantom Thief Kid had sent in and the message of the note. She thanked the receptionist and immediately returned to her office. As soon as she entered the room, Vicky picked up the coffee pot and rushed to the sink, and poured the coffee little by little. As the dark coffee poured out of the pot, the transparent coffee pot revealed its full items. She saw a teardrop-like, bright ruby wrapped in a sealed film, lying quietly on the bottom of the pot. The ruby was put at the bottom with a sticky material, so it wouldn't fall out even if the glass pot was turned upside down, preventing the ruby from accidentally pouring out when pouring the coffee. "This is the tears of an angel," Vicky exclaimed in surprise as she looked at the ruby at the bottom of the glass pot. She didn't suspect that the Phantom Thief Kid might have replaced it with a fake. "Because that would be pointless. He actually entrusted me with such a precious ruby? Why?" Vicky couldn't understand this situation at all. The Phantom Thief Kid had sent a notice letter to the police and another to the media, gone through so much trouble to steal this ruby, and now he didn't want it. It couldn't be that Phantom Thief Kid suddenly had a change of heart, thinking that he shouldn't violate others' property and wanting to return it, right? Then he should have directly sent it to the GCPD or a museum. "What's the meaning of giving this hot potato to me, a small reporter?" Suddenly, she remembered the note from the Phantom Thief Kid. Could it be because of my article? Vicky thought in disbelief. She tried to understand the reason behind the Phantom Thief Kid's actions, but after thinking for a long time, she couldn't come to a conclusion. "You'll never understand what Gotham's criminals do for something." At this moment, Vicky truly experienced the meaning of this saying. She stopped thinking and took out her phone to make a call. "Hello, GCPD? This is Vicky Vale from the Gotham Gazette. I have important information to share with Commissioner James Gordon. Gotham has a famous island called Arkham Island, which is always covered in dark clouds. On the island, there is a hospital that is heavily guarded by electric fences and looks creepy and terrifying. This was the famous Arkham Asylum, a place where people who were gifted but had bad morals and were beyond the reach of the law and ethics were treated. These patients are extremely intelligent, persuasive, and extraordinary abilities. However, due to their advanced mindsets that violated societal standards, they were considered unsuitable for society and had to be imprisoned within the walls of the asylum. In simple terms, it was a prison specifically designed to detain mentally ill criminals. At that moment, a man wearing a tan-colored trench coat, with white hair and a beard walked out from behind the thick iron gates of Arkham Asylum. It was none other than Commissioner James Gordon of the Gotham City Police Department, GCPD. A police car was already parked outside the asylum, and Gordon got in the car directly after leaving. "How's it going?" Detective Bullock asked from the driver's seat. "Clayface has nothing to do with Phantom Thief Kid." Gordon shook his head. Harvey raised an eyebrow and asked, "Are you sure?" "I can't be sure, so I checked multiple times using some methods," Gordon replied with a blank expression. "Well, I don't want to know what methods you used to extract information from him." Harvey changed the subject. "While you were having a friendly chat, GCPD received a report from Vicky Vale, and it's related to Phantom Thief Kid. Isn't Vicky Vale a reporter for the Gotham Gazette? Did Phantom Thief Kid commit another crime?" Gordon asked anxiously. "Almost, but with a slight difference in the details. He returned the tears of an angel," Harvey answered. "What did you say?" Gordon suspected that he didn't hear. "I said Phantom Thief Kid gave the tears of an angel ruby to Vicky Vale, and then she reported it to the GCPD. Go to Gotham Gazette, right now." Gordon immediately urged Bullock to start the car. "Don't be impulsive, Jim. She's already at the GCPD, waiting for us to return," Harvey calmly smiled. At the same time, on a barely populated street near the Gotham Gazette building, Dean, wearing the Gotham Gazette uniform, appeared from a dark alley. Behind him, you could vaguely see 3 or 4 people lying on the ground. When will there be less crime in the alleys of Gotham? Dean brushed off the dust from his clothes and shook his head helplessly. Not long ago, he had sneaked out of the Gotham Gazette building to find a location without surveillance cameras to change his clothes and escape. However, he unexpectedly ran into a group of robbers. Chapter 12, Gotham International Hotel. With Dean's current skills, it's easy to knock down a few drug addicts and knock half of their bodies into the ground. In Gotham City, almost every alley with no lights leads to homeless gangsters like them. They do not belong to any gang or have any special skills to show. They live day by day, bully the weak, and avoid the strong. The Wayne Foundation would give them charity every month, but they would spend it all on drugs within a few days. Then they would form groups and hide in the alley, waiting for an easy target to pass by so they could rob them and use the money for more drugs. They live in this endless cycle of drug addiction until they die of an overdose, starve to death, or go insane and end up in Arkham Asylum. The lucky ones might be picked by a large gang and be offered a deal to take the blame for a crime and serve time in Blackgate Penitentiary. Once they are released, they are given a fair amount of money and, at least, won't have to worry about starving or freezing to death. Although life may be worse than death when you become addicted. It was interesting that even though they could have committed crimes to get these, but they didn't dare to do so. They were so useless that not even a small gang with only a dozen members would not consider recruiting them. The gang is so large in Gotham City that it's difficult to imagine. Many people may ask, why not provide them with jobs? It sounds like a good idea, but it also needs them to be willing to work. In short, Dean felt no pity for these people and wasn't soft in this way. As he left the alley, Dean had already changed his disguise and clothes. Checking the time, it was still early at 8 o'clock in the evening. Dean wasn't in a rush to go home, his main concern at the moment was Vicky Vale's news article. Gotham's upper class is hosting a top-level auction, featuring the world's largest and most precious pink diamond. Dean was highly interested in this event. If I remember correctly, the auction is scheduled for next Saturday, from 9 o'clock to 12:30 o'clock, and the pink diamond is the finale. As for the location, it would be in the Grand Hall on the 18th floor of the Gotham International Hotel. Now is the perfect time to gather some information. With that thought in mind, Dean headed towards the hotel. Luck was on his side, as he didn't have to walk for long before encountering a taxi. Taking a taxi would save him a lot of time. Also, Dean is still maintaining his disguise, so he has no worries. 20 minutes later, Dean got out of the car and arrived in front of the hotel. The Gotham International Hotel went all the way up to the 26th floor and had a lot of space and nice decorating. It was said to have been built by an ancient and famous Gotham family, but no one knows whether this is true or not or whose family it is. Hotels were often thought of as semi-public places because there were often a lot of people inside. But this hotel was different. Its high prices had already turned away 99% of potential guests. It can be seen that although the auction is still a week away, the red carpet has already been laid at the entrance of the hotel, and several waiters are standing at the door to welcome guests. There were even a number of paparazzi holding cameras, squatting in positions across from the hotel or at other angles, ready to capture shots of influential people. Entering through the main entrance requires verification, and Dean would not do it this way. First, he found a hidden spot to change into a formal black outfit. Then, he put on a black mask, revealing only his eyes and mouth, making him resemble a small shadow figure. After all, he was there to check, not run an official operation. It wouldn't be wise to draw attention by wearing an obvious Phantom Thief kid suit. Once he changed his clothes, Dean had another idea. If someone saw him by chance, they would probably think he was a criminal because of how he was dressed and in an all-black suit. Even though this wouldn't be hard to handle, it could still be a bit troublesome. So, was there a way to wear all black, be seen by others, and still stay hidden? Indeed, there was. Dean had a moment of inspiration and took out a yellow marker. He drew a bat symbol on his chest. After finishing all the preparations, Dean quickly walked around to the back of the hotel while no one was paying attention. There was a row of trash cans and a small door. The trash can was full of different ingredients. Obviously, the back door was leading to the kitchen. The door is tightly locked and being watched, so it was hard to guess when someone might come. It was also annoying to pick the lock and get in. Dean continued to move around the hotel, keeping his distance. After circling around, Dean didn't find any other entrances. There's no way in from the ground, let's check the rooftop. Dean decided and returned to the back of the hotel. He took out his grappling gun from a blind spot of the surveillance cameras and shot it towards the roof. Most buildings have a stairwell leading to the rooftop, but it seemed like this hotel didn't want to be like most buildings. The rooftop was simple, with no stairs to go up, and there is not even a border. Dean wasn't sure what the designer of the hotel was thinking, but at the moment, he only wanted to give them a piece of his mind. Do I have to go back and wait for the next time they throw out garbage in the kitchen? Dean pondered. He thought while coming to the edge of the rooftop near the back door and looking down. Suddenly, Dean noticed a ventilation duct installed on the wall several meters below him. It wasn't strange to have a ventilation duct, but what caught Dean's attention was that this duct was unusually large. Large enough for a grown adult to fit in. Dean stared at the ventilation duct and made a decision. Meanwhile, on the 25th floor of the Gotham International Hotel, in the presidential suite. This was the most luxurious suite in the entire hotel, taking up a whole floor. Even if there was a party with 1,000 people here, there would still be plenty of space. Moreover, the 25th floor was not open to the public. No matter how much money one had, they couldn't stay here. This area only accommodated VIPs with political status, such as foreign diplomats or high-ranking officials from the country itself. However, at this special place, there was a group of menacing-looking people gathering. Nice place you got here. I like this sofa, it's really comfortable. A blond man in his 30s, wearing a black leather jacket, with a cigarette from his mouth and a big pompadour hairstyle, said as he sat on the sofa. The rest of the people in the group stood behind him, showing that he was the leader of the group. In front of him sat a middle-aged man with a nervous expression, had a goatee. The name tag on his chest showed his identity. Joey Cicero, the executive manager of Gotham International Hotel. If you like it, I can have a similar one sent to you, Mr. Ogilvy. Manager Cicero replied when he heard the man complimenting the sofa. Then he asked, the auction doesn't start until next week. Why did you come today? It's the boss's orders. I'm just following orders. Ignatius Ogilvy said it casually as he took a puff from his cigarette. Upon hearing this, Manager Cicero's expression changed, and he hurriedly asked, what orders did Mr. Penguin give? Chapter 13, the second notice letter. You have to understand that our boss is a cautious man. He sent me here for one reason only. Ignatius said, shaking the cigarette in his hand and staring at Manager Joey with a knowing look. Joey wasn't stupid and immediately understood. He sat up straight and assured Ignatius, I have made all the arrangements. The appraisal certificates are all perfect and from the highest standard authoritative institutions. There are no flaws at all with simple appraisal methods. Those rich people who are sitting on their hands will not doubt the authenticity of the diamond. If outsiders were to hear Joey's words, they would be shocked. The rumor circulated that the world's largest pink diamond was a fake, and the person who did this is the executive manager of Gotham International Hotel. After all, the Gotham International Hotel had always had an excellent reputation, and many auction events happened there. Joey, as the executive manager, has hosted countless auctions without any issues. Who would have thought that Joey, a respected person, would work with the Penguin behind the scenes to set up such a fake diamond? Is that so? Then why are there rumors spreading in Gotham recently about the diamonds being fake at the auction? There are even people saying that the seller behind this diamond is our boss. Ignatius's eyes narrowed, his gaze sending a chilling sensation towards manager Joey. The only ones who know about this diamond are us and the puppet responsible for the shipping company. I think you need to provide me with an explanation, Ignatius said. I don't know anything about the rumors. Joey replied. As soon as he spoke, Joey became panicked and stood up. I swear I haven't revealed anything to anyone else. No need to panic. The boss still trusts you. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here talking to you. Ignatius waved his hand to signal Joey to sit back down. Upon hearing this, Joey finally breathed a sigh of relief. But he did send me here to remind you that with the quality of this diamond, the starting bid is at least $30 million. This is not a small amount, and the boss takes it very seriously and won't let any make mistakes. Ignatius's expression turned serious. And there's one more thing, the most important thing was that there must never be any connection between the diamond and the boss in public. Understood. I know the rules. Joey nodded repeatedly. Great. After the job is done, you'll get your share. Let's have a pleasant cooperation. Ignatius said this with a smile as he shook hands with Joey. They didn't know that, at this moment, there was an uninvited guest hiding above them. Wow, I just heard some incredible news. Dean whispered while peeking down below from a hole in the ventilation duct. It seems that the pink diamond at the auction truly belongs to Penguin, and from the conversation between those two, it seems like it's a high-quality replica. Dean's eyes sparkled with a new plan forming in his mind. At this time, Ignatius and Joey finished their conversation, stood up, followed by their subordinate, and walked towards the door. Dean seized the opportunity and quickly flipped his fingers and a card instantly appeared from between them. He found the right angle, and when everyone in the room had their backs to him, he flicked the card downward. The card flew out of the hole with astonishing speed and landed on the ground before bouncing back at an incredible angle, landing perfectly on the coffee table in front of the sofa. Did you guys hear something? Ignatius quickly picked up on the sound of the card hitting the ground and bouncing. He immediately pulled out his gun and turned to glance at the room. Then he saw a strange white card on the coffee table. The rest of the group was a half-step slower, but they also pulled out their guns. It was clear that the subordinates accompanying Ignatius had much better training compared to ordinary street thugs. As they turned around with their guns drawn, they all spread out, forming a semicircle to cover the whole room. Only Joey still hadn't learned the situation. What's going on? SHH. Ignatius put his finger to his lips, signaling Joey to be silent. Instead of looking at the card on the coffee table immediately, Ignatius pointed to his men. Then, under Joey's pained gaze, Ignatius and his subordinate raided the luxuriously decorated presidential suite, causing countless damages to high-end furniture. After a while, the search stopped, and no one else was found inside the suite. At this point, Ignatius finally shifted his gaze to the card. Picking it up and taking a look, his pupils shrank. On the rooftop of Gotham International Hotel, Dean climbed out of a ventilation duct covered in dust and rust. Cough, cough, I need to take 8 showers when I get back. Dean muttered as he coughed and tried to get rid of all the dust he had inhaled. Crawling through a ventilation duct was no easy task. It was dirty and small, and crawling in them is a dangerous thing to do. After several deep breaths, Dean finally made it to the rooftop and gazed at the city traffic below. It's time for the name of Phantom Thief Kid to spread throughout Gotham. With a slight smile on his face, he reached up and grabbed the collar, and pulled it down, quickly changing into a white suit in the blink of an eye. The pure white cloak fluttered slightly in the night wind, and a tall top hat appeared on his head. That's right, he looked just like the Phantom Thief Kid. Dean observed the passing cars and people on the streets below. Suddenly, he jumped off the rooftop. In free fall, Dean remained calm. He activated a gear, and his cloak transformed from soft fabric into a triangular glider. Following the wind, Dean gracefully glided above the road. "Look up in the sky, is that a person?" someone shouted as a white figure appeared against the dark night sky, easily catching the attention of people. "I've seen him in the newspaper. I think he's called Phantom Thief Kid." "Wait, look carefully. Is something falling from the sky behind Phantom Thief Kid?" At this time, someone suddenly pointed at the sky behind Phantom Kid and screamed. Phantom Kid's gliding speed was fast as he flew over the heads of the crowd, and the falling objects followed. They were white cards, each with words written on them and a cartoon image of Phantom Thief Kid in the bottom right corner. Some people caught the cards as they fell from the sky, while others picked them up from the ground. And what was written on the cards was none other than a message from Phantom Kid. A grand and luxurious banquet of nobles, where no one remembers the tragedy of Troy. When Cronus returns to the origin, Hermes will appear before the eyes of all, revealing the final deception. Sincerely, Phantom Thief Kid. Chapter 14, Discussion of the Notice. Everyone is the main character of their own life. Phantom Thief Kid. This is Gotham Channel 7, I'm your host, Reese White, and we have an urgent news update. About an hour ago, the Phantom Thief Kid, who stole Tears of an Angel, appeared at Gotham International Hotel. Many witnesses reported seeing Phantom Thief Kid gliding through the air with his winged glider while showering the area with many cards. These cards were written in several paragraphs like riddles. It is rumored that before stealing the Tears of an Angel ruby, Phantom Thief Kid had sent similar cards to an art museum. We have reason to believe that these notices are his way of announcing his next performance. It is worth mentioning that not long ago, Phantom Thief Kid handed over the stolen Tears of Angel to the famous reporter Vicky Vale, who then handed the gem over to the GCPD, which eventually returned it to the museum. There are so many unsolved mysteries about Phantom Thief Kid. He dresses in luxury clothes, is bold in his actions, and doesn't shy away from public attention when he steals. He even discards the stolen one he got, which begs the question of why. Why would Phantom Thief Kid willingly give up such a priceless gem? What is the true motive behind his theft? And why did he choose to deliver the gem to Vicky Vale? Is there a hidden connection between them? What kind of treasure has Phantom Thief Kid been targeting at this time? All these questions may be answered when Phantom Thief Kid makes his next appearance. Let's keep an eye out for that. Lastly, if any citizens can decipher the contents of Phantom Kid's notices, don't hesitate to contact the GCPD. We appreciate your contribution to Gotham's safety. After the urgent news broadcast ends, the TV continues broadcasting the original program. However, Dean's attention is not on the TV at this time. The news about the notice has been spreading. Last time, I had the advantage of inside information, so the process was easy. I wonder how they will come after me this time. Dean pondered with his head lowered. His current target is entirely different from Tears of an Angel. Not only is there a huge difference in value, but the enemies are also different. The mastermind behind the world's largest pink diamond, Pink Fantasy, was none other than Gotham's underground kingpin, Penguin. Although Penguin does not want to get involved in the fake diamond situation, but he sends his trusted subordinate, Ignatius. Dean won't underestimate his opponent because of this, especially since there might be even more tough people getting involved. However, he wouldn't give up on his plan because of this. I sent the letter of notice with a lot of attention. This move is a clear threat to law and order in Gotham. The GCPD will definitely take me more seriously now, and knowing Gordon, he will most likely demand full control of the hotel's security. Dean pondered and repeatedly confirmed the possibility of his plan. By then, with Gordon's strong control, Penguin's subordinates will have limited space to operate. They might even start fighting each other as soon as they meet. And then there's Robin. He can send multiple supervillains to Arkham Asylum alongside Batman. His abilities are undeniable, and if he made things worse, is there a chance he could get Batman's attention? In Gotham, Dean grew up listening to the legends of Batman. There were all sorts of incredible rumors about him, and it was hard to tell whether they were real or not. Just the thought of possibly facing the GCPD, Penguin, Robin, and even Batman at the same time filled Dean with huge pressure. In similarity, it would be like Kaito Kid facing Conan, Suguru Hakuba, and Makoto Kyogoku. Under this pressure, a strong fighting spirit arose inside Dean. This is a huge challenge, and Dean could predict that if he succeeded, he would earn many amazement points. He's spent so many years honing his skills in Gotham, all for this day, right? Turning off the television, Dean got up and walked towards his basement, opening the secret door to enter the workshop of the Phantom Thief. For the operation in a week, he needed to make some new gadgets. On the second day, when Dean walked into the classroom, he heard his classmates talking about Phantom Thief Kid again. Did you hear? The Phantom Thief Kid appeared again last night. Of course, everyone in Gotham is talking about Phantom Thief Kid now, especially his mysterious notices. A small group of students in the discussion were lucky to be near Gotham International Hotel last night when Dean distributed the notices. They had picked up a few cards and brought them to school to show off, leaving other students envious as they could only see the contents on TV or in the newspapers. One student pulled out a Phantom Kid's advance notice, and immediately 5 or 6 people gathered around, making continuous chatter. A grand and luxurious banquet of nobles, where no one remembers the tragedy of Troy. When Cronus returns to the origin, Hermes will appear before the eyes of all, revealing the final deception. What do you think this means? Well, Troy, Cronus, and Hermes. I know these words are definitely related to Greek mythology. Bro, you just repeated the words. Get out of the way, let me use my logic skills. First, let's look at the banquet of nobles. This line is about Phantom Kid distributing the notice at the International Hotel and the upcoming auction that will be held there soon. The answer is already obvious. Anyone could figure that out by the first sentence. Please tell us what the next sentence means. Next, let's look at the tragedy of Troy. The legend says that the Trojan War was caused by a dispute over Helen, the most beautiful woman, resulting in the destruction of the entire city-state, creating a great tragedy. So, I guess Phantom Thief Kid might disguise himself as a beautiful woman. Well, that seems to make some sense. What does the rest of the sentence mean? A cough. Well, the rest, those who understand it, understand it. It's not that complicated. In the classroom, many students excitedly deciphered the notice as if they were playing a word puzzle game. Although to Dean's ears, none of them guessed the sentence. Hee, keep guessing, you geniuses. Seeing so many people scratching their heads trying to solve the notice, Dean secretly felt satisfied. It was not in vain for him to pull out so many of their hairs when thinking about the notice letter. However, in the crowded classroom, there was one place that seemed a little out of place. It was the last row next to the window, the seat behind Dean's. Dick Grayson was also holding a copy of Phantom Kid's notice, frowning and lost in deep thought, without speaking with anyone. Hey, Dick, you're interested in Phantom Kid's notice too. Why don't you join others and discuss it? I don't remember you being so quiet before. Dean returned to his seat and calmly asked Dick. Guys, there's no anything romance or shit between Dean and Dick. They're purely best friends, just like Gojo Satoru and Geto Suguru from JJK. They are slowly discovering themselves and Dick is already doubting himself and Batman at these upcoming chapters. Enjoy. This is more like bromance. Patreon.com/Sothesque. You can find up to 20 advanced chapters at my Patreon. Chapter 15, The Answers. I don't know how I'll feel when I'm dead, but I don't want to regret the way I lived. Yuji Itadori. Hearing someone calling his name, Dick raised his head and looked at Dean with a confused expression. Dean? What did you just say? I said, are you so interested because you've figured something out? It seems like there's a riddle challenge going on in the school right now. Dean pointed behind him to the chaotic classroom, Dick's face showing a keen interest, just like the other students. I've heard a lot of people give different answers, but they all make sense. Dick, you're the smartest person I know, so I want to hear what you think about the mysterious notice. Come on, I'm not as smart as you think. I was just casually looking at it, maybe my thoughts aren't as good as others. Dick smiled at Dean, saying that he was just playing around. You're acting as if it's not looking at it. Go ahead and tell me, don't worry, even if your answer is ridiculous, I won't make fun of you. Dean playfully hooked his arm around Dick's shoulder and teased him. All right, then I'll just say it. In fact, I haven't fully deciphered the notice, but I have figured out some parts. Upon hearing this, Dean's heart skipped a beat. Dick's choice of words, haven't fully deciphered and figured out, meant that he had already deciphered more than half of the notice. Although he didn't really say it, Dick was clearly confident in his analysis. Dick lowered his head, looking at the notice, and pointed to it, saying, "The grand and luxurious banquet of nobles mentioned here is clearly talking about the auction next Saturday that will gather upper-class people." Then, when Cronus returns to the origin. Just as he reached that point, Dean suddenly interrupted him. Wait, what about the line where no one remembers the tragedy of Troy? That line? Dick scratched his head in embarrassment. That's the part I haven't figured out. If you insist on solving the tragedy of Troy as the Helen who caused the war, or the Trojan horse massacre at the end, it can be explained, but I always feel that it is too weird. You're right, it does sound a bit weird. Dean nodded seriously, agreeing with him. When Cronus returns to the origin, it was about the time when the Phantom Kid committed crimes. Dick continued with his interpretation. Cronus is the god of origin believed by Orpheism, one of the three major religious groups of Greek mythology. It is the first cause of everything in the universe and also symbolizes time. When Cronus returns to the origin, he returns to the source of time. Of course, Phantom Thief Kid obviously can't time travel, so this line means the starting point of the day, which is midnight or 12 a.m. And finally, Hermes will appear before the eyes of all, revealing the final deception. Dick held his chin with both hands and said, Hermes is talking about Phantom Kid himself because Hermes is the god of thieves, which is the most appropriate name to use. Revealing the deception most likely has something to do with the rumors spreading the upcoming auction of the world's largest pink diamond. When looking at it this way, it seems like Phantom Thief Kid's goal isn't to steal something, but to expose a deception. As Dick reached this point, he began to have a silent expression. His face was filled with confusion, and his voice became quieter. But, why would he do this? What is the motive behind Phantom Thief Kid's actions? If he's not interested in money, why steal precious gems? Looking at Dick deeply immersed in thought, Dean's eyes showed admiration. He truly was a person trained by Batman. It took him such a short time to decipher the notice, missing only the last detail. But even if you decipher it, it doesn't necessarily mean you will understand my plan. It is better to say that this notice is meant for people to understand. A glimmer of cunning flashed in Dean's eyes. After this conversation with Dick, he knew that this wonder boy was following his lead. He shook Dick's shoulder, snapping him out of his deep thoughts. Hey! Dick, what are you thinking about? Dick came back to reality and nervously laughed. Sorry, I was just thinking deeply about something. At that moment, Dick suddenly turned his head and stared at Dean. He asked, Dean, can I ask you a question? Sure, what is it? Do you know a magician who is proud of his magic talent that he can't be satisfied with just performing only on stage and getting the idea of using magic for attention and committing criminal activities? Dick asked seriously. Dean, you are the best magician I have ever met. You must know much more than me about the people and things in this circle. Are you asking if it's possible to investigate who Phantom Thief Kid is through the identity of a magician? Dean thought seriously about it for a while and then said, to be honest, there are many magicians in Gotham who have similar thoughts, just like the clowns in the circus who want to kill people. But magicians who can reach the level of Phantom Thief Kid are very rare. There are no more than 20 famous, including myself. As for whether there are any hidden geniuses among those unknown and homeless magicians, I don't know. Dean didn't deliberately reduce his suspicion of being Phantom Thief Kid but directly stated that he has the related knowledge. After all, these are public information, and saying I couldn't be Phantom Kid would make him even more suspicious. 20. Hey. Thanks, Dean. Dick nodded, understanding the situation. Speaking of which, why are you asking this all of a sudden? At that moment, Dean intentionally put on a curious expression and stared at Dick for a long time. I remember that when everyone talked about Phantom Kid before, you looked like you didn't care. Why are you suddenly curious today? Dean suspiciously asked Dick. Also, you always seem very active in the news about supervillains, but you never seem interested in the topic of Batman and Robin from the beginning, Dick. Could it be that you are? Of course, Dean knew why Dick suddenly asked about the magician. He is Robin, a superhero, and it is normal for him to want to catch Phantom Thief Kid, a supervillain. As Robin, he had a close relationship with Batman, so it was also normal for Dick to be deaf to the absurd speculations about Batman from outsiders. But the problem is that Dick doesn't know that Dean knows that he is Robin. Faced with Dean's sharp gaze, Dick was stunned for a moment. Could it be, you're a member of the supervillain fan club? Dean asked with a serious tone. Chapter 16, the night before the auction. Which would be worse, to live as a monster, or to die as a good man? Teddy Daniels. Gotham City, Iceberg Lounge, and the boss's office. A short and fat man in a tuxedo sits at the head of the table, listening expressionlessly to the report from his subordinate. This man's appearance was quite strange, with a round, swollen face and unusually sharp nose that was as long as a penguin's beak. With such obvious facial features, there is no need to say more about his identity. Today, the biggest kingpin of Gotham's underground, Oswald Cobblepot, is also known as Penguin. Below Penguin, Ignatius calmly told him about Phantom Thief Kid's notice letter. Phantom Thief Kid. After hearing Ignatius's explanation, Penguin seems slightly interested, but he doesn't seem to take this new thief seriously. He shook his head casually, as he didn't think the Phantom Thief Kid was a big threat compared to Catwoman. Our rookies in Gotham are becoming more and more bold. Does he think he can mess with what's mine? Does he think he's Catwoman? At this point, Ignatius asked, Boss, do you need someone to take care of him? Humph, no need, someone will help us. Penguin sneered twice upon hearing this. The upcoming auction will gather most of the influential people in Gotham. The GCPD won't allow that thief to cause trouble at the event, and even that Bat and his little bird will possibly show up. Even I have to think carefully about what to do in this situation before I do anything, let alone a new thief. We don't need to take the initiative to deal with him. This ignorant thief will pay the price for his stupidity. Ignatius looked worried and asked, Boss, I'm worried that this Phantom Thief Kid might find out about the fake diamond and expose our secret. So what if he does? Penguin didn't take it seriously. Ignatius, have you forgotten why we forged that diamond? I never expected to make money by selling it from the start. Even if the fake is exposed, what harm can it do to us? Besides, there is no evidence to prove that the diamond came from us. But what about the Phantom Thief Kid, then? The calm attitude of Penguin made Ignatius frown. He spread the notice letter to let the whole city of Gotham know that he would steal something at the auction, and the target was definitely our diamond. From the outside world, this is seen as a challenge from the Phantom Thief Kid to Penguin Gang. If we completely ignore him. Did I say we're completely ignoring him? Penguin glanced at Ignatius. I just don't want to carelessly offend the GCPD and Batman for a stupid idiot. That's a ridiculous decision, but it doesn't mean I'm afraid of them. Ignatius, on the day of the auction, the hotel will be full of GCPD personnel. We won't get involved inside. You arrange for a few gunmen to ambush outside and be careful not to be caught by the police. If the Phantom Thief Kid tries to escape, let someone kill him directly. If Phantom Thief Kid gets arrested, then kill him with the police car that escorted him. It's such a simple task, I don't think I need to explain more. I understand. Boss, I'll follow your instructions. Ignatius assures Penguin before leaving the office to carry out the plan. However, as he turns around, a mysterious glint flashes in his eyes. But Penguin didn't notice. Meanwhile, at GCPD headquarters. This is an obvious challenge from the Phantom Thief Kid to the Gotham City Police Department. Gordon gathered all the available officers, angrily making a speech. He held the Phantom Thief Kid's letter of notice, showing it to everyone. A mere thief dares to reveal his crimes in advance, even distributing the notices to the public. What does he want? He's basically inviting countless people to witness his crimes. He's completely ignoring the GCPD. The Phantom Thief Kid wants to crush on the dignity of the GCPD. But I, Jim Gordon, am the first to refuse. I believe neither will you. As soon as he said this, the group of young officers beneath him became instantly excited, as if they were injected with energy. They were the fresh blood who had become police officers in the past 10 years. Most of them went down this path because they admired Gordon, unlike those veterans who have been doing this for decades. At least, compared to them, these young recruits have not been harmed mentally or physically. After all these years, we have encountered enemies far stronger and harder to deal with than Phantom Thief Kid, but none of them have ever shown such obvious disrespect for the dignity of the police like this. Gordon talked about the history of the GCPD with a proud expression on his face. And we have crushed those enemies, so Phantom Thief Kid won't be an exception. As he speaks, Commissioner Gordon changes the subject. Therefore, everyone who hasn't received a new case will be working overtime starting today. We must solve the contents of Phantom Kid's notice before the auction next Saturday. With restored determination, the GCPD sets out to solve the mystery. On the outskirts of Gotham City, there was a luxurious mansion occupying a vast area. At the center of the mansion stood a 5-story mansion spanning over 3,000 square meters. Every piece of wood and every decoration inside could be considered the rarest and most valuable thing in the world. Priceless antiques were scattered throughout the mansion, placed randomly. This mansion was the ancestral home of the Wayne family, with a history of over 100 years. But it also hides secrets much older than that. Inside the mansion, in a luxurious dining room that could fit dozens of people at the same time, there were only 2 people present. One of them was Dick Grayson, and the other was an elegant and slim old man. The old man was dressed in a butler's uniform, but no one should underestimate him just because he was a butler. In fact, this man named Alfred Pennyworth was the most important person at Wayne Manor. "Master Richard, is today's meal not to your liking?" Alfred looked at Dick, who was staring intently at the Phantom Thief Kid's notice in his hand, and asked. "Hey? Oh, no, I like it." Dick snapped out of his thoughts and quickly shoved a bite of food into his mouth. "I don't want you to be like Master Bruce, always ignoring meals for the sake of fighting crime. You are still growing, and you need proper nutrition," Alfred sincerely advises. "No, Alfred, I'm not like Bruce. I'm just me." As soon as Alfred speaks, Dick reacts as if his nerves have been touched. He quickly starts eating, putting the Phantom Thief Kid's notice aside. "Master Richard, I'm glad you enjoy my cooking, but please don't eat so quickly. You might choke." Alfred shook his head helplessly. Chapter 17, The Start of the Auction. I was complaining that I had no shoes till I met a man who had no feet. Confucius. Ahem, cough cough. As expected, Dick tries to shove so much food into his mouth that he chokes on it. Alfred, next to him, had expected this and quickly handed him a glass of water. Dick gulped it down and felt much better. "Thanks, Alfred, and I'm already full," Dick said as he reached for Phantom Thief Kid's notice to continue his thoughts. "Master Richard, I don't remember the last time I saw you so involved in a case. Is this Phantom Thief really that difficult to deal with?" Alfred asked. "Difficult to deal with?" Dick pondered for a moment, then shook his head. "It's hard to say. He doesn't have Killer Croc's immense strength, or Two-Face's twisted mind, or the extreme madness of the Joker, nor the brutality of any murderer. Even when it comes to intelligence, I don't think he can surpass Riddler." Dick recalled the scene of his first encounter with Phantom Thief Kid and said with a serious tone, "But there's something unusual about him. His attitude, his methods, it's the opposite of any criminal I've encountered. Instead of thinking about how to defeat him, I'd rather understand why he's doing these things. I want to convince him to leave this path. Like what Bruce tried to do with Selina Kyle." Alfred interjects. Dick pauses for a moment, then gestures with his hands. "There's a difference. At least Selina is a total beauty. Bruce was really lucky. I just wish Phantom Thief was." "Are you sure you're not underestimating Phantom Thief's abilities, Master Richard?" Alfred looked at Dick and reminded him. "As you said, Phantom Thief lacks the strengths that other supervillains have, just like Catwoman. But when Batman chased Catwoman, it was a long and tug-of-war. Perhaps getting some help would help you capture Phantom Thief faster and convince him to change his path." Alfred suggested a reasonable suggestion. But Dick rejected it without hesitation. "I can handle this on my own, Alfred. When I had to leave Gotham and temporarily focus on the Teen Titans, Batman did just fine. If Bruce can do it, then so can I. And right now, Bruce is dealing with Justice League matters. Who can help me? Barbara? It's been less than half a year since Bruce agreed to let her be Batgirl. She doesn't have much experience." At this point, Alfred pointed to himself and said, "Master Richard, I'm not so old that I can't walk around." The auction at Gotham International Hotel starts with entry at 4 in the afternoon, and the official bidding starts at 9 in the evening, lasting until midnight. No one can guarantee when Phantom Thief will move. Alfred shares his thoughts. "Master Richard, after such a long time, you can't possibly go into the hotel wearing Robin's suit or just keep waiting outside the hotel, right?" Dick had his first meeting with Phantom Thief Kid, and it didn't go well because he waited outside instead of being inside at the scene. "Alfred, are you saying that you and I will go to the auction directly in the name of the Wayne family and wait for Phantom Thief Kid to appear? You are still a minor, it's only natural for you to be accompanied by me, your butler," Alfred said. "Besides, even without Phantom Thief Kid's situation, I hope you can participate in more activities." "Thank you for your suggestion, Alfred. Let's go together to the auction. But I'll pass on the activities. The Teen Titans group activities are enough to give me a headache." Dick nodded seriously and agreed to Alfred's plan. In response to Phantom Thief, Robin, GCPD, and even Penguin each came up with their own strategies. On the other hand, the mastermind behind all of this, Phantom Thief, wasn't sitting idle either. For more than a week before the start of the auction, Dean either focused on improving his skills or went out to gather information. From time to time, Dean would question Dick for any hints to confirm if he needed to adjust his plans. It's a pity that Dick wasn't Ginzo Nakamori, and the difficulty of his set of words is not ordinary, and Dean actually didn't get much useful information. However, Dean discovered that Dick would attend the auction as a representative of Wayne Group with Alfred. This could be considered important information. Time passed slowly, and soon it was the day of the auction. On this day, before the operation, Dean took a nice nap and didn't get up until after 5 o'clock in the afternoon to maintain the best mental state during the night operation. Dean took all the gadgets he had prepared in advance and headed for the Gotham International Hotel. By the time he arrived, it had already been an hour since the start of the auction, but Dean remained calm. Based on his week-long investigation, the most critical moment was still an hour and a half away. After some time, at Gotham International Hotel, there was a lot going on in the kitchen on the ground floor, and everyone did their best and showed off how good they were at cooking. Because the auction is too long, they won't allow the bidders to go hungry, especially since they are members of Gotham's upper class. Therefore, the hotel is responsible for catering during this time, and all the pressure falls on the kitchen. If a VIP didn't enjoy their meal because of a mistake, there would be serious consequences. Even before the auction started, there was a lot going on in the kitchen. The kitchen was busy making sure that fresh ingredients were brought to the restaurant every minute during the auction. Even though no one would eat them, they couldn't be lazy. As a result, a large amount of food was going to be wasted. "Tom, are you blind? The garbage bin is almost full again. Hurry up and take it out." In the kitchen, an older staff member in charge of making seafood sashimi pointed at the bin filled with different organs of an animal and shouted at a nearby intern. "I've got it, I'll take it out right now." The intern, Tom, who had only been there for 2 months, hurriedly ran over and picked up the garbage bin. It was obvious he wasn't used to the sudden increase in workload. Tom carried the garbage can, filled with a reek of blood, walked out of the back door, and emptied all the waste into the large trash bin while holding his nose. He repeated this more than 20 times today, as he was responsible for disposing of almost all the kitchen garbage bins. Whether it was seafood offal, poultry bones, or fruit peels, he was getting sick of dealing with all kinds of kitchen waste. In fact, he had already thrown up once. Of course, his job wasn't just throwing out the trash, he also had to do odd jobs like cleaning the floor. "I really need to take a break." Tom walked towards the side, leaning against the wall for a moment to rest. He thought he could finally have a moment of peace away from the bad smell near the trash can and out of sight of the surveillance camera above the back door. "You really do need to take a break." At this moment, a strange voice suddenly sounded from behind him. Chapter 18, Security Measures. A woman that can be bought isn't worth having. Wilson Fisk, Daredevil. Poor Tom hadn't even had time to react before everything went black, and he passed out. Dean quickly lifted the unconscious Tom onto his shoulders, then took out a grappling gun and fired it towards the top floor of the hotel, taking both of them up to the rooftop. When he visited the hotel before, Dean saw that the hotel's roof was empty and that there were no stairs or elevators to enter the hotel. While there was a ventilation shaft that could reach the 25th floor presidential suite, it only had one exclusive elevator in the presidential suite that can go directly to the first floor, which needed a special keycard to activate. So Dean couldn't use the ventilation shaft to sneak into the auction. However, the rooftop still had some advantages for Dean to use. One was that no one would come up here, so he could safely leave the unconscious Tom on the rooftop. "You'd better get some more breaks." Dean laid Tom down in the center of the rooftop and took out a small sleeping pill from his pocket, placing it in Tom's mouth for him to hold. The sleeping pill was specially made to melt quickly when held in the mouth without causing any strong effects. After sleeping for 5 or 6 hours, he will likely wake up. Next, Dean took off Tom's coat and trousers and put them on himself. He then took out the face mask he had made a few days ago and put it on. During his investigation of the area, Dean noticed that Tom was usually the one responsible for taking out the garbage. Then he found that almost every time, the person who came out to take out the garbage was Tom. Based on Tom's age, it wasn't hard to figure out that he was an intern who had just started doing odd jobs for 2.5 months. So Dean had prepared Tom's mask in advance, which happened to come in handy now. But even if it wasn't Tom coming out to take out the trash, it wouldn't be a big problem. Dean always carried 2 or 3 semi-finished faceless masks, which he could use to create anyone's face on the spot, just to deal with this situation. Cough cough, I really need a good break. I really need a good break, perfect. After changing into Tom's clothes and putting on the mask, Dean cleared his throat and imitated Tom's voice perfectly. In just 2 sentences, the sounds became so similar that it was impossible for the human ear to determine who was who. Returning to the ground, Dean used Tom's ID card to open the hotel's back door and walked inside, holding the trash can that Tom had taken out. Gotham International Hotel, at the entrance. A black Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up and stopped in front of the red carpet. Dick Grayson is dressed in a formal suit, and Alfred gets out of the back seat and the driver's seat, respectively. The valet immediately approached and replaced Alfred as the driver, taking the car to the parking lot. At the same time, a welcoming waiter approached them, checked their invitation, and respectfully said, "Mr. Grayson and Mr. Pennyworth, welcome to the auction. Please follow me." Guided by the welcoming waiter, Dick and Alfred entered the hotel lobby together. Then they saw a row of solemn GCPD police officers running security checks on each guest entering the hotel. The person leading the team was a middle-aged man with a large belly and a greasy cowboy hat, none other than Harvey Bullock, Commissioner Gordon's deputy. "Officer Bullock, what's going on here?" Alfred and Dick went up to ask. "Oh, Mr. Pennyworth and young Grayson, if you're here, it means that Mr. Wayne is also coming to the auction, right?" Seeing Alfred and Dick, Harvey greeted them warmly. He patted Dick's shoulder and said, "It's been 2 years since I last saw you. I didn't expect you to have grown so tall. How are you doing living at Wayne Mansion? Mr. Wayne treats you well, right?" Dick's parents used to work in the most famous circus in Gotham, performing difficult aerial acrobatics. They were called the Flying Graysons. Unfortunately, during a performance, the Graysons were murdered and died on stage when Dick was 8 or 9 years old. Bruce Wayne happened to be watching the circus with one of his girlfriends that night and saw the tragedy. Bruce decided to adopt Dick on the spot so that Dick would not become an orphan. Jim and Harvey were the ones in charge of that case, so they were familiar with each other. "Thank you for your concern, Officer Bullock. I'm doing very well. Alfred and Bruce both consider me a real family member and treat me with the good care." Dick said it with a smile. "That's good." Harvey nodded in relief. "Mr. Wayne has something to do tonight, so I am the only one who will accompany Master Richard." After exchanging a few words of greeting, Alfred opened his mouth to explain. "He's probably busy spending some quality time with a beautiful lady to live 2 identities." Harvey snorted. "There are so many policemen in the hotel, are they here because of the phantom thief that was mentioned in the news?" Alfred looked at the row of officers next to them and asked knowingly. "As far as we know, Phantom Thief seems to have excellent disguise techniques or shape-shifting abilities similar to Clayface. So anyone you see here could be the Phantom Thief, that's why, besides checking invitations, there's an extra check needed to enter the hotel." While Harvey explained, he suddenly reached out and grabbed Dick's cheek without warning. "Just like this." "Ouch! Hey, what are you doing?" Dick complained as his cheeks were suddenly squeezed. "Whether it's disguise technique or shape-shifting like Clayface, as long as you grab someone's face like this, you can tell if the other person is the real person." Harvey released his grip, leaving Dick's cheeks slightly red and swollen from the force Harvey used. Then he moved to do the same with Alfred's face, but this time, he was much gentler, considering Alfred's advanced age. At the entrance of the hotel lobby, every guest had to go through this process. Of course, if there were female guests who didn't want to be touched by male officers, GCPD had female police officers as well. "I apologize, but this is to confirm that Phantom Thief won't sneak in right under our noses. We hope you understand." Harvey said it apologetically, but his smile didn't quite match his words. "Where's Commissioner Gordon? Is he not here today?" Dick rubbed his face and turned to look around. "Jim is busy setting up security measures at the auction venue. I'm just in charge of guarding the entrance," Harvey explained. "Well then, we won't disturb you while you're on duty, Officer Bullock," Alfred said with a smile, and he and Dick passed the security check and took the elevator to the auction venue on the 18th floor, where the auction was happening. Chapter 19, The World of Rich. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. Kaiser Soze, the usual suspects. As soon as they reached the 18th floor, Dick and Alfred noticed that the number of police officers was several times more than at the entrance. As they walked out of the elevator, they encountered at least 3 guards at every corner and even 5 officers at some important areas. There were also patrol teams passing by the hall from time to time. A patrol team is made up of 2 people. There are a total of 10 patrol teams, and they switch every 5 minutes. The defense seemed quite tight, with sharp police officers armed with guns everywhere. However, once Dick and Alfred entered the auction venue, the tense surroundings suddenly eased quite a bit. The venue was divided into 2 parts. The first half is an entertainment area with a restaurant, ballroom, and bars, while the second half is the actual auction venue. The large restaurant already seated hundreds of people who were enjoying foods made from rare ingredients on their tables. Next to the restaurant area was a big ballroom where pairs of ladies and gentlemen danced together to beautiful music. There were also many reporters in the venue, and they kept taking pictures of the group of celebrities and the upper class. In the deeper parts of the ballroom and restaurant, there was another huge space. The 2 areas are separated by a huge, bright red curtain. From the gap between the curtains, one could see rows of tiered seats, showing that this was where the auction would happen. All the auction items, including the world's largest pink diamond, Pink Fantasy, were currently stored in a storage room behind the auction venue. Although there were already many guests in the venue, Dick noticed that there didn't seem to be any GCPD police officers present. He wondered if Gordon didn't arrange any personnel inside the venue or if undercover officers were hidden among the crowd. For the most wealthy people in Gotham, the most important thing about an auction is not what good things they can find. After all, most of the auction items were brought in by themselves, and it was just a game of exchange between families, with things going from one family to another and then back to the first family. For them, this was more like a social gathering to strengthen connections with other families. There are also some dirty deals happening here. Of course, there are people who have a lot of money, but they don't have anywhere to spend it and don't want to buy boring things. They only participated in auctions to satisfy their pleasure desires. The Phantom Thief's notice letter has attracted a lot of attention from the outside world. But these people didn't seem to know anything about it. They ate, drank, and played without worrying about or mentioning the Phantom Thief. It was as if they didn't care about him at all. As Dick looked at these upper-class people in front of him, who were so addicted to their wild lifestyles and behaviors, he couldn't help but feel annoyed. Alfred noticed Dick's expression and calmly smiled, saying, "Don't worry about other people's thoughts or how they behave. You can't change them, and they don't want to change either. We just need to focus on what we're here for. I know you don't like the group of people in front of us. I can tell you that Master Bruce disgusts them even more. But the majority of the city's resources are in the hands of these upper class. That's why Master Bruce wears a mask and hangs out with them every day. This is the only way he can use them and give this place a small chance of improving the city. Master Dick, I noticed a few tables with Romanian meat rolls and Italian creamy mushroom sauce. It's dinner time, so let's fill our stomachs first." Dick nodded helplessly and followed Alfred to the restaurant area, finding a corner to sit down. Shortly after they sat down, a young waiter holding a menu and an empty tray approached them with a smile and asked, "May I take your order?" The menu only had the names of the foods and no prices. This was not to trick the guests, but because all of the food and drinks were free. The hotel was not the organizer of the auction, it just rented this floor as a place for the auction and made a lot of money just for that, and there are even more hidden profits. Naturally, they wouldn't charge additional fees for these regular services. The young waiter took out a pen and started writing down the food that the 2 people ordered while listening. During this process, Dick didn't say a word, it was all Alfred listing the food. 1 con seafood caviar platter, 2 Romanian meat rolls, 1 Norwegian smoked salmon, 1 burgundy herb-baked escargot, 1 bluefin tuna sashimi, 1 creamed corn soup. Is that all, right? After confirming the order, the waiter repeated it back and then left with the menu and an empty tray. Oh! As he turned around, a beautiful woman with blonde hair passed by, and the two accidentally collided. The woman stumbled and was about to fall backward. Alfred, who was closest to her, quickly reached out and caught her. The waiter was fine, but the empty tray in his hands was knocked off and fell upside down on the floor. But at this moment, he didn't care about the tray. Instead, he quickly helped the woman up and kept apologizing, his face full of panic. "I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't mean to. I didn't know you were behind me." The waiter wished he could slap himself dozens of times. Anyone attending the auction would be someone he couldn't afford to offend. Now, he nearly knocked someone down. If the other person got angry, he would have no place in Gotham. "It's okay, I'm fine." The blonde woman got back on her feet and straightened herself, then smiled at the waiter. "I should be the one apologizing. I was in a hurry and didn't notice you were about to turn around." "You don't blame me." The waiter couldn't believe his ears. "It's a little incident, there's no need to blame anyone," she said, waving her hand. "The restaurant is crowded, and I'm sure you must be busy. I hope I didn't disrupt your work." Upon hearing this, the waiter felt as if he had been given mercy and quickly left the scene. You're Miss Vicky Vale, right?" At this moment, Alfred looked at the blonde woman and asked. Hearing her name, Vicky looked at the person who had helped her and realized why he looked familiar. "It's you, Alfred." Chapter 20, Exposed. "Why do we fall, sir?" "So that we can learn to pick ourselves up." Alfred Pennyworth. "You are still the same as before, Alfred. Is Bruce here too?" Vicky looked at Alfred with a look as if she had just met an old friend after many years. "No, Master Bruce has some important matters to attend to, so he couldn't make it." Alfred shook his head slightly. "This child," she muttered under his breath. Vicky turned her gaze towards Dick, looking at the young man who was now taller than her and asked in disbelief. "You must be Richard Grayson, right? It's been so long, the last time we met was 3 years ago, or was it 4? "It's been nearly 6 years, Ms. Vale." Dick smiled. "It really is you. I can't believe it's been that long." Vicky reminisced. Many years ago, Vicky had a romantic relationship with Bruce Wayne. It wasn't just a casual fling but a serious relationship. In fact, on the day Richard Grayson lost his parents, Bruce was with Vicky at the circus, and she saw the whole process of Bruce adopting Richard. At first, things went well between Vicky and Bruce, but their relationship didn't last long, like most of Bruce's romances. However, even though their romantic relationship ended, Bruce and Vicky still go on dates every now and then. "Have you had dinner, Ms. Vale?" Alfred looked at Vicky, who was alone, and asked, "What I mean is, if you don't mind, would you like to join with us?" "Thank you for your kind offer, Alfred. I'd love to catch up with you both, but I've already had dinner. I came to the restaurant to find William Ethan." Vicky politely declined Alfred's invitation. "William Ethan? The head of Ethan International Shipping Company? I heard that the pink fantasy diamond at the auction belongs to him." Dick asked curiously. "Yes, that's him. I have a lot of questions I want to ask him in person." Vicky confirmed. "What kind of questions? Is it related to Phantom Thief? Or is it related to the rumor of Penguin?" Dick continued to ask. Vicky scrutinized Dick from head to toe and smiled as she politely refused, as expected of a child raised by Bruce, "You're almost as curious as him." "But, I have to tell you the same thing I told him, these are confidential business questions for reporters, and I can't share any details with you. Well, I hope I didn't make things difficult for you. Dick said it disappointedly. All right, guys, I have to go now. The auction starts in half an hour, and I'm not sure if I can find Mr. Ethan before it begins. Vicky glanced at her watch and said this before hurriedly leaving. Good luck, Ms. Vale. Alfred and Dick encouraged her as she left. Looking at Vicky leaving, the two of them were preparing to sit back at the table. At this moment, Dick suddenly noticed something on the floor below the table. Bending down for a closer look, it turned out to be the empty tray that the waiter had dropped. Since the tray fell directly under the table, Dick and Alfred didn't notice it while chatting with Vicky. In addition, the waiter had run too fast before, so they didn't pay much attention to the tray still on the floor. Just a simple bump and the waiter was terrified. It makes me wonder what kind of behavior those rich kids usually behave. Dick thought to himself, annoyed as he bent down to pick up the empty tray from the floor. But when he picked up the empty tray, Dick's expression instantly changed. He saw a white card suddenly appear on the floor where the tray was picked up. Is there something under the table, Master Richard? Alfred asked strangely when he saw Dick still bending down under the table. Alfred, we just saw Phantom Thief. Dick arose from under the table with a serious expression, holding the white card in his hand. We're just not sure which one is Phantom, the waiter, or Ms. Vicky. Did I hear you correctly? Did you just say Phantom Thief? Alfred's expression also became serious upon hearing Dick mention Phantom Thief. Dick looked around, there were barely any people nearby, and Vicky and the waiter who were here earlier had long disappeared. He placed the card on the table so that both he and Alfred could see the words written on it. To dear Robin. At this place and time, I am one of you. Come and find me, little bird. If you can find me before the clock strikes, I will give you a surprise. Yours sincerely, Phantom Thief. Master Richard, this is... Alfred stood up from his chair in shock and quickly covered the words on the card. At the same time, he kept looking around nervously, as if afraid that someone might see the words on the card. Don't worry, Alfred. I've checked, and no one's paying attention to us right now. Dick said it in a serious tone. Phantom Thief knows your identity. Alfred spoke in a quiet voice. Dick took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. He replied in a low voice, Believe me, I don't want to believe it either, but the fact is, he knows I'm Robin. How is that possible? The Phantom Thief has only seen Robin once, how could he know it's you? Alfred couldn't believe it. I don't know. Besides Bruce, you, and Barbara, only the heroes of the Justice League and Titans should know that I'm Robin. There's no way Phantom Thief could know who I am. Dick frowned, trying to figure out all the possibilities. Suddenly, Alfred hid the card in his clothes and looked worriedly at Dick. If Phantom Thief knows who you are, it means Bruce's identity is probably exposed too. It's too dangerous to stay here. Master Dick, we need to leave immediately. No, Alfred. If we leave now, we will be playing into Phantom Thief's hands. Dick shook his head. This card is his challenge to me. He wants to test me if I have the courage to stay even when my identity is exposed. If I stay, I will have to play in his game of finding him. If I back down, it's like admitting defeat in his game. Are you sure about this, Master Dick? Alfred stared at him. Do you realize what might happen if Phantom Thief reveals your identity to others? I'm pretty sure Phantom Thief won't do that, at least not right now. Otherwise, all the criminals in Gotham would have come to try and kill me by now. Dick replied seriously. Phantom Thief wants me to play this game with him, and I'll play with him to the end. Dick determinedly declared. Chapter 21, Chapter 21, The auction begins. You need to accept the fact that you're not the best and have all the will to strive to be better than anyone you face. Rorano Azoro. Ah, if Master Bruce were here, he would definitely make the same choice as you. Alfred sighed, no longer trying to convince Dick but quickly switching from being Wayne's butler to Bat family assistant. Do you want to tell Commissioner Gordon that Phantom Thief has already entered the auction venue? We can have the police re-examine the people at the venue. Alfred suggested. No, we can't. We don't have any evidence to prove it to the police. Phantom Thief pointed out my identity in the card, which means this game is meant for me alone. Dick immediately rejected the advice to seek help from Gordon. If he revealed to the cops that Phantom Thief had sneaked in without proof, they would be suspicious of him. The only piece of evidence they had was the card from Phantom Kid, but it said Robin instead of Dick. Unless someone else received similar cards, his secret identity could be exposed. He couldn't just change into Robin's suit and ask around because he couldn't explain the origin of the card. Besides, Dick could already predict the scene where the police would request facial identification if they saw him. How are you going to find Phantom Kid without the assistance of the police? There are nearly 1,000 people at the auction. Alfred asked in confusion. It's all right. Batman and I have always been supportive of the police, but they've never been supportive of us. I can handle this on my own, and I have some ideas about Phantom Thief's plan. Dick replied and shifted his gaze to the crowd and narrowed his eyes to look at each person. I really want to see what surprise Phantom Thief is talking about. What do we do now then? Alfred asked as Dick seemed quite confident. Of course, we should do what we originally came here to do, have dinner. After a while, in the public bathroom at the back of the venue, Dean took off his last waiter disguise and put on a new one. That's right. The waiter who took Alfred and Dick's orders earlier was actually Dean in disguise. As for how he managed to get into the auction venue, it started with Dean knocking out the kitchen intern, Tom. As a Tom, Dean continued to do all the hard work in the kitchen. He took on tasks others didn't want to do and worked tirelessly and hard. Seeing a new guy who had just started and wasn't used to the hard work and putting in so much effort was quite obvious. Dean quickly exhausted himself, collapsing on the ground unable to even move a finger. The other chefs couldn't help but feel sorry for him. Especially the one who had been constantly ordering Tom to take out the trash. He thought it was because he had been too irritated to pass it on to Tom and felt guilty for even asking him to take out the trash when the bin was full. While it seemed strange that Tom suddenly became so hard-working, no one suspected that he was fake. All of the people who worked in the kitchen had been checked by the cops before, so they believed that their co-workers were real. Besides, there were surveillance cameras at the back door, and as long as nobody left the monitoring range, there wouldn't be any trouble. In addition, everyone was already busy with their own work and didn't have extra time to think too much. This was just a normal way of thinking, no one would doubt a person who had already been verified. That was also the reason Dean chose to disguise himself as Tom. After all, it was impossible to repeatedly check for every person who had left their site. Both the person doing the checking and the person being checked would get frustrated and stop being able to do their jobs because of repeating the checking. In short, in the eyes of the kitchen staff, Tom's body was already beyond its limits, and if he continued, there was a possibility that he would collapse. If it were any other time, it would be fine. But now, with so many important people in the hotel, they couldn't afford any accidents at this moment. So, the exhausted Tom was reassigned to a different position, working as a waiter in the restaurant venue, taking orders and delivering food. The hotel had kitchens not only on the first floor but on every floor. The first floor kitchen was the largest, while the kitchens on the other floors were somewhat smaller. The main work of the first floor kitchen was to process ingredients and do some pre-made cooking, and there are only a few dishes were finished. Then, the processed ingredients and prepared dishes were transported to the kitchens on each floor using the staff elevator, where the final meals were made and served on the dining tables. In this way, Dean was ordered to push a cart full of ingredients to the 18th floor kitchen, where he would then begin his role as a waiter. It didn't take long for him to notice that Dick and Alfred had arrived. Dean's bumping with Vicky Vale and the dropped tray were all planned to deliver the card to Dick. After delivering the card, Dean quickly left the venue and changed his disguise. He knew that once Dick saw the card, Dick would suspect the waiter and Vicky Vale. If Dean continues to maintain his original disguise, he will be exposed. Although this means that a tray will go missing, there are many staff members in the restaurant who won't notice for a while. By the time they did notice, the auction had probably started a long time ago, which would no longer matter to Dean. Unless Dick revealed the possibility of Phantom Thief disguising as a waiter, Dean was confident that Dick wouldn't do that, and he couldn't either because it would expose his secret identity. Dean glanced at his watch with a sly smile. The auction is about to begin. I wonder what Robin will do. Will he run away because I revealed his identity? Dean murmured to himself and then turned to look at the big man unconscious and tied up on the toilet. Mr. William Ethan. Not long after, the auction officially started. The large curtain separating the auction venue from the entertainment area finally opens, and nearly 1,000 upper-class guests enter the auction area, finding seats in rows of tiered seating. Although the seats do not have names, these guests seem to follow an unspoken rule, purposely choosing their seats rather than sitting randomly. Which row should they sit in? Left or right? Who is sitting next to them? It seems as if these decisions have already been planned. Perhaps for them, seating arrangements represent their social status. Even if there are more empty seats in the front row than in the back, those who are not supposed to sit in the front row are obediently squeezed into the back. However, no matter how important the guests were, the middle seats in the first row remained empty. It's not until Dick and Alfred arrive that they naturally sit in the center, and no one dares to object. Because they represent the uncrowned king of Gotham, the Wayne. Chapter 22, Chapter 22, Lark. A hero would sacrifice you to save the world, but a villain would sacrifice the world to save you. Lelich 6 Britannia. Hello, everyone. I am the executive manager of this hotel, Joey Cicero. Welcome guests to our hotel and participate in this auction. On the stage of the auction, Manager Cicero held a microphone and smiled as he gave his opening speech to the upper-class audience below. Now in front of me is the first auction item of the day, a vintage pocket watch. In front of him was a table with a gavel and an old-looking pocket watch. Behind Joey, a large screen was set up, which displayed the details of the pocket watch. This pocket watch comes from Gotham's famous Elliot family, and over a century ago, Edward Elliot, the head of the Elliot family, spent a lot of money to invite world-class craftsmen to make it. Joey talked endlessly about the history of the antique pocket watch. In the audience, Dick pretended to listen with great interest, but his mind was somewhere else. Phantom Thief's target should be the pink diamond, and the time for him to do it will definitely be the moment when Zero arrives. Dick pondered secretly. Why did he send out a message in advance and challenge me to find him when nobody noticed him sneaking in? He could have stayed hidden until the right moment. Is he so confident that I won't reveal his disguise before the time arrives? Or is this just part of his plan? He held the two cards from Phantom Thief in his hands, one was the notice, and the other was the challenge. Dick compared the contents of the two cards and pondered intensely. Let me think. If I were Phantom Thief, what would be the last thing I would want to do right now? At the same time, on the rooftop of a building across from the hotel, several snipers aimed their weapons at the hotel, exactly at the 18th floor auction venue. Beside the snipers, one of Penguin's henchmen, Ignatius, took out his phone and made a call. What's the matter, Ignatius? The call connected not long after, and a female voice came from the other phone. Lark, are you inside the auction? Ignatius asked. I'm sitting in a corner, watching these rich people fight over a bunch of old junk of metal as if it's worth anything. William Ethan is with me too. The woman named Lark replied impatiently. It's still a long time before that fake gem comes out. Get to the point, what do you want? Just be careful what you say inside the venue, don't let anyone hear you. Ignatius warned with a frown. Ha! Are you doubting my abilities? Don't forget, I've been working for the boss much longer than you. As long as I don't want to, no one can hear me speak. Lark scoffed. As you wish. Anyway, if anything goes wrong, you're responsible. Have you seen any sign of the phantom thief? Ignatius asked and changed the subject. No, if I saw him, he'd be dead by now. Lark's tone was full of arrogance as if she didn't care about phantom thief at all. It's good to be confident, Lark. I hope you can live up to that confidence. Ignatius' eyes sparkled with a mysterious light as he chuckled. If everything goes as planned, Phantom Thief will reveal himself at midnight. I called to remind you not to forget what the boss orders. Don't do anything to Phantom Thief right away, let GCPD deal with him first. We'll stay out of it if we can. HMPF. Lark coldly snorted and hung up the phone, not sure if she agreed or not. Lark, what did Mr. Ignatius say when he called? Did the boss have new orders? Beside her, a middle-aged man in a blue suit with a flattering smile asked. This man was William Ethan, the head of Ethan International Shipping Company, who Dean had recently tied up and left unconscious in the bathroom. So, how did William Ethan end up at the auction venue instead of being trapped in the restroom? The answer was simple, the person pretending to be William Ethan was actually Dean in disguise. It wasn't an easy task for Dean to copy William Ethan, as there was a big size difference between them. He had to squeeze his clothes with a lot of things to look convincing. No, he's just making fun of me and wasting my time. Lark said unhappily. You seem to have a lot of grudges against Mr. Ignatius. Both of you are the boss's most trusted confidant, so why do you seem to have such deep hatred? Dean, disguised as William, asked curiously. Humph. Hearing this, Lark sneered and said, the most trusted confidant? What makes him deserve that title? I've been by the boss's side for 10 years, and I've taken care of countless enemies for him. I also manage the biggest money-making iceberg casino in Penguin Gang's empire. The iceberg casino? A gleam flashed in Dean's eyes. The place was said to be where the Penguin had built his empire. He couldn't believe it was being run by the woman in front of him, who didn't seem particularly smart. He couldn't help but wonder if Penguin trusted Lark so much or if she had some great talents. What's Ignatius worth? He only joined the gang 3 years ago and does nothing more than collect debts, horse betting, gambling, and being a thug. He's not even qualified to meet the boss every day, and he's only been around for 2 years. If it weren't for some luck that brought him to boss's attention during a gang war last year, he would still be a nobody. He came up with a few ideas that impressed the boss and suddenly became some sort of advisor. Lark's face was filled with disdain. Just a year ago, he was just a nobody, so why did he become the boss's most trusted confidant? Dean had something in mind but wasn't sure if he should say it. According to Lark, she had been in the gang for 10 years, but she still acted brainlessly and acted everything with violence. On the other hand, Ignatius had good ideas during the gang war that impressed the Penguin and turned him from a nobody into a useful advisor. A position that took 10 years for someone like Lark to do, Ignatius managed to climb up in just 1 year. Dean couldn't help but shake his head. As the saying goes, a small-time gangster will always small-time gangster all his life if he doesn't use his brains. However, for Dean, it was actually a good thing that this person wasn't smart. From the moment he entered the auction venue until now, Dean had been slowly taking information from Lark. Suddenly, Dean's eyes flickered as he looked down at the front row below. He noticed that the central seat, which belonged to Dick Grayson, had become empty without him realizing it. Only Alfred remained sitting in his original position. Chapter 23, Investigation. Worrying does not take away tomorrow's troubles. It takes away today's peace. Randy Armstrong. Dean's eyes darted around as he quickly figured out where Dick had gone. Then, he stood up from his seat. Where are you going? Lark beside him asked curiously as Dean got up without any reason. Oh, I just need to go to the bathroom, you know, I ate a bit too much earlier. Dean said with a sheepish smile. That's why you're always so fat, can't even walk properly. Lark said, looking disdainful. He then slightly turned his legs to the right of his seat to make way for William to walk through the hall. Luckily, the two of them were seated in the far corner, and after passing by Lark, Dean made his way to the corner of the stairs. After leaving the auction venue through a side door, Dean quietly left the scene. Just after Dean left the side door of the auction venue, another person in the venue also left. On the other side, the kitchen on the first floor of the Gotham International Hotel. While everyone was busy working, the kitchen door suddenly slammed. The sudden noise startled everyone, and they all turned their heads to look at the door. They saw a young boy wearing a tight red top and tight green pants, with a mask covering his face, entering the kitchen. He was carrying a young man who was only wearing a thin shirt and shorts on his shoulder and was currently sound asleep. When the kitchen staff saw the young man on the teenager's shoulder, the expressions on their faces were even more surprising. "Isn't that Tom? And the person carrying him, isn't that Robin? I remember Tom was supposed to be sent to the 18th floor to serve the dishes on the tray. How did he end up being carried here by Robin while he's asleep? Wait." At this moment, a staff member who was cutting salmon suddenly spoke up. "Do you remember what GCPD said about how Phantom Thief can disguise himself as someone else? The person in front of us might not be Tom, it could be Robin caught Phantom Thief disguised as Tom." "That makes sense, but how can we be sure it's the Phantom Thief disguised as Tom? Maybe Robin is the one pretending to be the Phantom Thief." Robin didn't explain much, he just placed the sleeping Tom on the ground and said casually, "I found him on the hotel rooftop, and Phantom Thief knocked him out." After speaking, Robin turned and left the kitchen. Soon after, in the surveillance room on the 20th floor of a hotel, GCPD Commissioner Jim Gordon and several elite intelligence unit members were here, staring intently at the dozens of monitors on the wall. "It's been over an hour since the auction started, and we haven't noticed anything unusual. Is Phantom Thief really going to show up?" One of the officers blinked his tired eyes and picked up a cup of coffee from the table to take a sip. "Don't let your guard down. It was not midnight yet as Phantom noticed he would come. Anything could happen during this time." Gordon spoke with a serious expression, warning his subordinates. "You're right. In fact, Phantom Thief has already infiltrated the hotel." Just then, a voice suddenly came from behind Gordon. "Who's there?" The police officers in the surveillance room instantly turned around, aiming their guns at the person who spoke. "Robin." Gordon looked surprised as he stared at the person. He was just about to relax, but then he remembered that Phantom Thief was a master of disguise. He then stared at Robin with a cautious look in his eyes. "How can you prove you're not Phantom Thief?" Gordon asked firmly. Robin remained silent for a moment, then pulled out a golden badge from somewhere engraved with the word Justice. "Do you remember this? A few years ago, when Batman first took me to meet you at Bat Signal, you personally gave me this souvenir. You said it was a symbol of our partnership." Seeing the badge, Gordon's expression softened, and he almost believed Robin completely. However, he still had a last bit of doubt. "Maybe you stole that from that kid. Not many people know about the badge, but there are a few in Gotham who can find out. You have to tell me something only the two of us know, at least one thing." Gordon said it firmly. "All right, let me think about what to say." Robin shook his head helplessly and then rubbed his chin. "How about the smoking pipe? Commissioner Gordon, you used to smoke regular cigarettes like everyone else, but because of Batman always appeared behind you and startled you, causing you to drop your cigarette to the ground. So, you switched to using a smoking pipe and held it in your hand to smoke." "Oh, I see. That's why the commissioner suddenly started smoking pipes instead of regular cigarettes." At first, I thought he was getting into a retro style, but I never thought the real reason was this. A police officer next to them had a sudden realization and said to his colleague. Gordon glanced at him coldly without saying a word, then turned back to Robin. You have successfully proven your identity, Robin, so what do you mean by saying that the phantom thief has already infiltrated? I found an unconscious person named Tom on the rooftop of the hotel. He works in the kitchen on the first floor, but the people in the kitchen were working with Tom before I discovered him sleeping. Robin skipped over the fact that the phantom thief had sent him a personal challenge and only explained how he found Tom. Obviously, phantom thief disguised himself as Tom to get inside the hotel. I'm here to investigate Tom's actions through the surveillance footage. Quick! Pull up the surveillance and rewind the time. Gordon immediately gave orders to his subordinates. The situation was critical, and the other police officers immediately started operating the surveillance system. The surveillance footage began to rewind until about 2 hours ago when a person who looked just like Tom came out of the first floor kitchen, pushing a cart filled with food supplies, and entered the elevator. Robin focused his gaze, watching every move of Tom in the footage. Then, something strange happened. In the surveillance recording, Tom was pushing the cart and secretly looking around. His head movements were very fast, almost hidden unless you weren't paying close attention. Gordon and the others were facing dozens of surveillance screens at the same time, so it was understandable that they didn't notice it. They continued to watch the surveillance footage. After Tom started working as a waiter in the 18th floor restaurant, his actions became even more weird. Chapter 24, Surprised. How lucky I am to have something that makes saying goodbye so hard. Winnie the Pooh. In the surveillance footage, every once in a while, phantom thief, disguised as Tom, would leave the restaurant and appear in the halls. He kept changing his position, sometimes on the left side and then running to the right side. Also, he was always with another person or even a group of people, making it difficult to spot him alone. As a result, the police in the surveillance room spent a long time watching the footage but couldn't see anything suspicious because there were so many people dressed like Tom in the hallway. Tom was wearing the clothes that waiters wear. In addition, phantom thief always stuck with others, never making any obvious suspicious movements. If they hadn't known in advance that something was off about Tom, it would have been difficult for anyone to find out what was wrong. The surveillance only covered a small area, with only 15 cameras installed on the entire 18th floor to monitor the main halls and important areas. There was only one camera installed in the public entertainment area, and there were no cameras in the auction area. The reason was simple. Gotham's arrogant upper-class elites highly valued their privacy. They didn't like being watched, and they didn't like seeing a group of cops in police uniforms standing in sight. Therefore, if Gordon wanted to know what was happening inside, he could only rely on the dozens of undercover cops he had placed inside. Moreover, only important areas in the halls were under surveillance. After all, this was a hotel, not a prison, so it is impossible to consider installing 360-degree surveillance. Here, and here, rewind the footage 7 minutes, 22 minutes, and 17 minutes. Robin suddenly pointed to 3 of the surveillance screens. Do as he says. Gordon immediately instructed. The officers quickly adjusted the screens to the mentioned time points. In all 3 footage, they could see Tom. Pay attention to this. Although these are footage from 3 different camera angles, they were actually taken from the same location. Robin pointed it out. Yes, it's a corner, and the 3 cameras are located in the middle of 2 halls and at the top of the corner. The police officers agreed. Look at Phantom Thief in these scenes. He appeared in different positions, but in the 3 camera footage, he discreetly looked in the same direction at this corner. He passed through this corner 3 times, and his gaze was always focused in one direction. Isn't that strange? Robin's eyes deepened. What does he need to repeatedly confirm there? Notify the nearby patrol team to go there immediately. Gordon quickly responded, preparing to give orders to his subordinates to check the corner. "No, Commissioner Gordon, I can handle it alone." Robin stopped Gordon's action and solemnly said, "We can't be sure if Phantom Thief has set up a trap there and it's too dangerous to send GCPD officers to investigate. You're still a minor, and sending you alone is more dangerous." Gordon frowned and retorted, "Don't underestimate me. I've faced monsters that you couldn't even dream of." Robin replied with a slight smile and patted his chest. "Besides, you have more important things to do. The situation at the auction venue is unclear, and I suspect that Phantom Thief might have already infiltrated there. If you conduct a thorough search of the people at the venue, you might have a chance to force him out," Robin added. After saying that, Robin quickly left the surveillance room without looking back. "Wait, Robin!" Gordon hurriedly followed. However, when he rushed out of the surveillance room, there was no sign of Robin. The whole process took only 2 or 3 seconds, and Robin disappeared from Gordon's line of sight in the blink of an eye. "Shit! Not again!" Gordon couldn't help but curse. How did the Bat family learn these disappearing skills? He had even privately asked Batman if he had the ability to teleport instantly, but Batman didn't say anything, and Gordon didn't ask any more. Because the dumbfounded look in Batman's eyes had already given Gordon the answer. The time now is 23:35, and there are still 25 minutes left until Phantom Thief's notice time. If he's a on-time person, then I still have time. Leaving the 20th floor surveillance room, Robin ran as fast as he could, quickly arriving at the corner shown in the surveillance footage. He carefully observed the corner, recalling where Phantom Thief appeared in the surveillance and the direction he was looking at. Putting it all together, Robin found that there was a blind spot in the surveillance about 5 steps away from his current position at 9 o'clock. Then, Robin looked up at the ceiling of the blind spot and saw a ventilation duct with obvious signs of removal. On this floor, there were many similar ventilation ducts, but most of them were within the surveillance range, except for this one in the blind spot. "I see now. He was looking for this," Robin pondered, following the usual ventilation design. "From here, he can quickly reach. Could it be?" Suddenly, a flash of understanding struck Robin, and he revealed a smile of victory. "I see." At this moment, he checked the time again, 23:40. There was still enough time. Robin took out a grapple gun and shot it towards the ventilation duct. The loosened iron wire mesh was easily pulled down by the hook. Then Robin put away his grapple gun, jumped up, and clung to the ventilation duct, effortlessly climbing up. A few minutes later, Robin used his elbow to push open the wire mesh of another ventilation duct and jumped down. He entered a closed room with no lights and no doors or windows, and the only source of light was coming from behind a curtain. He could also hear some kind of ticking sound. "It seems I've reached the temporary storage for auction items," Robin thought, looking towards the back of the room, where rows of tables displayed various items stored in glass cabinets, all of which were up for bidding today. However, Phantom Thief's target, the Pink Fantasy, was not there. The most valuable treasures were kept in another secret vault until the final moment of the auction. A grand and luxurious banquet of nobles, where no one remembers the tragedy of Troy. So that's what it means, Robin pondered. He walked over to a corner and looked at an odd wooden box, which appeared to be the second-to-last item on display according to the item numbers. The box wasn't very large, and it didn't have a lock. It looked quite new and not like a valuable antique at all. This is probably something Phantom Thief dropped. What could be inside? Robin wondered, hesitating about whether to open it. After a moment's thinking, Robin decisively took out a gas mask and put it on before opening the wooden box. Bang! There was a sudden explosion-like sound, and a white flag popped out from the bottom of the box. On the flag, there was a cartoon portrait of Phantom Thief and a striking slogan are painted on the flag. Surprised or not? Unexpected, isn't it? Chapter 25, The the phantom thief appears. Everyone wants to be the sun to brighten up someone's life, but why not be the moon to shine on someone's darkest hour? David Copeland. As soon as Robin saw the flag, he realized that he had been tricked by the phantom thief. At first, Robin thought that phantom thief planned to replace the auction item with something of his own, like the wooden box in front of him. He suspected that the box probably had some remote-controlled mechanism or timed device that would release a large amount of hypnotic smoke, tear gas, or even deadly poison when activated, either by pressing a remote control or reaching a specific time. Of course, based on Phantom Thief's previous crimes, Robin believed that he probably wouldn't choose to kill. But it's always better to be safe than sorry. No one could be sure if Phantom Thief was an insane killer who enjoyed hiding his true nature. Robin guessed that Phantom Thief had timed it perfectly so that this wooden box would be brought up for bidding just before midnight. When the host introduced the item, the switch would be activated, creating chaos and allowing Phantom Thief to steal the pink fantasy in the middle of it. It sounded like something out of an action movie, but there was actually a chance for it to happen. Phantom Thief had already infiltrated the venue where the auction items were being kept, which means he knew the number and order of the auction items in advance. With this knowledge, he could intentionally bid high to scare off other bidders and quickly move on to the next item or slowly increase the bid to extend the bidding time, so that he could manipulate the amount of time for the auction. As for whether Phantom Thief had enough money to bid, it doesn't matter at all. After all, he wouldn't participate in the bidding using his real identity, but he would definitely disguise himself as someone else. What's more, Phantom Thief could even pretend to be the host and personally control the speed of the entire auction. In short, these things weren't too hard for Phantom Thief to do. Until a few minutes ago, Robin had been thinking this way. He plans to deal with Phantom Thief's surprise here, while Gordon and the others would start investigating everyone at the auction venue and finally expose Phantom Thief's true identity, and everything would end happily. However, this time was different from the last one at the museum. During the museum stealing, no one knew where Phantom Thief would appear or escape from. So the police had to be spread out all over the place. Now, most of the police force was concentrated on the 18th floor, and the entire auction venue was heavily guarded by the GCPD. In this situation, it was nearly impossible for Phantom to escape. But the result was that Phantom Thief had not left any trap or mechanism here, which meant Robin's analysis was wrong. Well, to be precise, there was a trap, it's just that the purpose of this surprise was more like a joke played on Robin. In the surveillance footage, Phantom Thief purposely glanced at the ventilation duct in the hidden corner 3 times. This small detail tricked Robin, making him believe that it was the key to solving Phantom Thief's plan. However, it turned out to be a trap set by Phantom Thief. The trap has been triggered. At the same time, Dean smirked happily while watching the show on his phone from his hidden location. "Ha, Dick, I knew someone as smart as you would be deceived. This is what they call being outsmarted by your own intelligence." The countdown begins. Suddenly, Robin realized he had almost missed an important issue. Phantom Thief tricked me into coming here, but what is his real plan? Oh no! It's already 23:58. Robin checked his watch, and his pupils shrank in panic. He immediately rushed out of the room, passing through the curtains and entering the auction scene. To his surprise, the upper-class people bidders who were eagerly bidding just minutes ago were now suddenly forming a line to leave. The auction wasn't over yet, so why was everyone leaving? Looking at the rows of GCPD officers nearby, Robin immediately understood what was happening. Gordon had brought in a large force to check everyone at the auction, and now all the people were under police control. Now Phantom Thief probably won't dare to make a move easily, unless he's not among these people. Robin silently pondered as he observed the crowd in front of him. He probably can't play the power blackout trick this time. Based on the surveillance footage from these hours, apart from the trap that misled me, Phantom Thief shouldn't have had time to set up any other traps. However, why did everything feel a little off? Boom! Just as he was thinking about this, a loud noises sounded without any warning. Next, the lights in the entire auction hall suddenly went out, leaving only the screen on the stage brightened. What? How is this possible? Robin couldn't believe his eyes as he looked at the suddenly darkened venue. I checked all the surveillance records for the past few days, and there's no way anyone could tamper with the power supply. Wait, could it be? At that moment, Robin finally understood why Phantom Thief had misled him to find that surprise. Time difference. Everything was for the sake of creating a time difference. By sending out that card from the restaurant, Robin was aware that Phantom Thief was probably disguised as a waiter, and all the preparations Phantom Thief made were to create a time difference. Knowing that Phantom Thief had already infiltrated, Robin had to catch him before Phantom Thief made a move. Since there were no clues to be found, Robin would naturally try to follow any trace Phantom Thief might leave behind. That brought him to the waiter named Tom. By tracking Tom, who was supposed to be Phantom Thief in disguise, there was a chance to find Phantom Thief's flaws. In this way, Robin would naturally investigate all the surveillance records of Tom. As Tom had appeared in almost all areas of the 18th floor at different times, which meant that all surveillance footage would be adjusted backward in time. When watching the surveillance footage, the current footage would be hidden from the view of the surveillance room, because they would be watching past footage. Even if Phantom Thief had made some moves during this period and been recorded by the surveillance cameras, the surveillance room personnel wouldn't see it. As long as his actions were fast enough, he could create a perfect time difference. Thinking about this, Robin couldn't help but be shocked by Phantom Thief's courage. If Robin had discovered the ventilation duct before Phantom tampered with the power supply, causing the surveillance records to return to the normal time, then all of Phantom Thief's plans would have failed. Just at this moment, a spotlight suddenly turned on, lighting the center of the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, a pure and majestic figure appeared in this spotlight. It's showtime.